What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 698 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the city of Vineland. It's your boy KB coming at you from Underground Studios, and we're recording on a Wednesday, so you already know what that means. It's Harry the K Wednesday, and you guys listen to this on Thursday, but Harrison joining me via Indiana, and we've got a lot to talk about on this episode. We got a lot to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, from the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown making you all look like utter and absolute buffoons. And by you, I mean the national media and a certain radio station or two. We'll talk about that. We will get you set for Eagles Steelers. Harris and I will talk a little bit about the game. And then we have an awesome conversation for you guys, 90 minutes at that, with friend of the program, my good pal, Wes Uhler, who hosts radio on Steelers Nation Radio. He produces the Steelers radio broadcast for their games, and he is also on Fox Sports Pittsburgh with Arthur Moats during the week, and they talk Steelers all the time in Pittsburgh. Wes and I chop it up whenever the Eagles and Steelers pop up on each other's schedules, and he is truly the best, and love having him on whenever the Eagles and Steelers meet, which we have both agreed on time and time again. Harrison, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like Eagles Steelers should always be on the schedule every single year.
Absolutely. It's an in-state rivalry. It makes sense. It's like going a year without the Penguins playing the Flyers, or
They
like,
used to be the same team. The Steagles
yeah,
existed.
this should be a every year rivalry thing. I don't care if it doesn't mean we play the AFC North. Like, we should be playing them every year.
100%. We'll also talk some Phillies because some big moves have happened. Scott Boras has talked about Alec Boehm. Rob Thompson's talked about Alec Boehm. And everyone that thinks Alec Boehm's going anywhere, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry about your luck. We'll talk Flyers, Sixers, and ladies and gentlemen, we have KB's Elite Eight. It's been narrowed down. This is the first installment of the Premier Decision, my search for a Premier League team that started a little bit about a year ago on Top Bins with Dom. I stated that I was going to do it for content, find a team. Never really went through with it. And then this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with it, as I was hosting by myself back in August, I think. And that was when the process started. I've been paying attention to the Premier League all season long, but we have narrowed the numbers down to the Elite Eight for the Premier Decision. And we will be announcing those 8 teams on this episode. So everyone that's been clamoring for it, you'll hear it at the end of the episode. But before we get into everything, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI across the board, or just search Underground Sports Philadelphia on your social media app of choice. We're on every single platform. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify. Leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way for helping the show continue to grow. Helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia. Plus, in 2025, we want to see you all on our Spotify Wrapped. Let's be honest. We want to see more people growing on Spotify with us, more people growing on Apple Pods with us. So keep subscribing wherever you get your podcast in audio form, and subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. We are 124 subscribers away from 1,000. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. Everybody just hit that subscribe button. It's free to do it. Smash that like button. Ring the bell icon, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. Come on, we're right there. Let's make that happen. And as always, guys, if you're new to the show, welcome. But if you're not, you know that this show is presented by the city of Vineland, my hometown. And the City of Vineland Municipal Calendar features city-organized, city-sponsored, and city-affiliated events that are of public interest. The calendar, which is accessible at vinelandcity.org, is a good way for residents and visitors to build awareness, remain engaged with city government, and participate in local events. You can also follow the City of Vineland on social media via their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages. And through these tools, you can stay connected to the community and get important announcements about programs and services offered by the city. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast.
I'm Mayor Anthony Finucci. If you're looking for the right location, think Vineland, New Jersey. Our pro-business approach is supported by financial incentives, workforce development programs, and other resources which can give your business a competitive edge. Whether you're starting a new business or expanding to new markets, our business environment, infrastructure, accessibility, and quality of life make Vineland an ideal location. More information about how we can help your business grow can be found at vinelandcity.org. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
Harrison, the Birds. It's Stillers week. The Yinzers are coming. And before we even talk about the Yinzers, I yelled into the ether on Monday about the Brandon Graham quote on the radio station. I yelled about people not being fluent in NFL and football terminology. I told people that A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts are more than friends. They're family, and everything is going to be fine. And yet, the bozos out there wanted to get their hate clicks. They wanted to just drown in the hatred and the awfulness and the be pity merchants.
Yep.
And yet here we are today. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown both have, quite frankly, their best press conferences while being members of the Eagles, and it's not even close. They delivered brilliantly to a lot of the bows. And this, I go and say this all the time, not every person that covers the Eagles is a bozo. Not every media member is a bozo, but you know who the bozos are.
Yep.
And they just absolutely killed them with kindness, killed them with their words, silenced all the doubters, all the haters, the Emmanuel Achos of the world, the Chase Daniels of the world. Chase Daniels should be the most thankful person on the planet because he threw one pass in an Eagles uniform and the rest of the time held a clipboard while he had his pads and a jersey on and made $11 million in an Eagles uniform. He should never have a slanderous word to ever say about the Philadelphia Eagles, yet he goes on his little TV show and thinks he's causing a ruckus, talking about everything. And apparently, when Josh Allen runs for 1-yard touchdowns, that deems you the MVP. And 1-yard touchdowns matter when Josh Allen does it. But when Jalen Hurts does it, he's not doing enough as a quarterback.
Oh, he's the tush push merchant. Like
he's a merchant for the tush push.
Yeah, all he knows how to do is just get those legs pumping and push it over the line. It takes a lot of skill to do that. It takes a lot of power, raw
And
power.
notice how no other team does it as flawlessly as the Eagles.
No, because no one has a quarterback who can squat 600 pounds.
But we digress. And I'm just so happy that AJ and Jalen silenced all the critics. I can't wait for AJ to still score 2 touchdowns this weekend and put up 200 receiving yards. And everyone will be like, oh, well, Jalen's not passing the ball around to everybody. And there will be another excuse.
Oh.
Or Saquon didn't get enough rushing yards to average out to get Eric Dickerson's rare. That'll be the next excuse. There's always going to be an excuse, everyone. The people who don't know ball about this team, the people who are just trying to create controversies and get clickbait headlines and just be negative all the time. Like, I have learned that as I've grown up and as we've been doing this podcast for as long as we have, and it hasn't even been that long.
Yeah.
The national media and the local media on a lot of levels, and there's a lot of great local media too that I respect the hell out of. A lot of them don't do it. They do their job eloquently. But there's a lot of them that would much rather find a headline, spin it negatively, and try to sell everyone on the negativity and make sure that the Chuck in Mount Airy and the Butch from Manayunk and the Tom in Cherry Hill are being controlled by the hive mind of that radio station over here, that radio station over here, and by the negative headlines in a lot of the newspapers and online media you see. I'm here to tell you right now, fuck that bullshit.
Yep.
Fuck that bullshit. The more and more you see it, the more and more, and I'm not just saying this because we are, but I genuinely feel like we are level-headed. We criticize when we need to criticize. We are thrilled when the team is doing well. And guess what, guys? Newsflash. This entire week, you wouldn't have known that the Eagles are 11-2 and have gone on a 9-game win streak. You would think they're at the bottom of the barrel like the Jaguars or the Raiders or the Giants, the way that people are talking about this team. But guess what? There's a lot of independent media outlets like ourselves, a lot of independent creators out there that are doing 100x better coverage of a team with zero access to the team than those that are afforded access week in and week out, that have players going on their airwaves week in and week out. And you just need to learn to tune those people out. You can't take what WIP and 97.5 say as gospel. You can't take what Jeff McClain writes as gospel until more is uncovered. You can't take what the fucking bozo-ass callers into a penny stock radio station say as gospel, because guess what? They're just like you and I. We don't get paid to talk on those airwaves. They don't either.
Yeah, and was that game a whole lot closer than it should have been? Sure. But at the end of the day, a W is a W. And going back to Jalen and AJ, families fight. Those two are brothers in arms. They will fight sometimes. But at the end of the day, it's all love. They're going to get back together, put their heads down, get to work, and watch AJ go for 250 and 3 touchdowns this week.
And I don't even think they were fighting. And what AJ said today after his one-word comment of passing, that everyone just immediately said, that means he's talking about Jalen Hurts. He's talking about Jalen Hurts when he says passing. No, you fucking clowns.
That's not how that works.
AJ literally said today, that could be about a pass protection. That could be about a blocking scheme. That could be about anything. He's like, I'm not mad that Saquon's running the ball. You should hear what I tell Saquon during the game about what he's doing. Like, AJ just wants to win. The amount of times, and you'll hear with Wes, I brought this up to him. The amount of people that think AJ Brown is George Pickens is crazy to me. And what I mean by that is George Pickens, wildly talented wide receiver, not trying to slander him whatsoever. But George Pickens also can be a bit of a head case and can do a lot of things that are out of pocket on the field when he's not getting the ball. People think that's what AJ Brown is, and he's just not. And people, since AJ has gotten here, have confused his passion and his will to win with him being a diva. And guess what? AJ's not a diva. He's a fucking competitor that wants to win at all costs. And if he sees something that's below the status quo of what he expects for not only himself, but the entire team, he's going to speak on it. And that doesn't mean he's a diva. And somehow, some way, this has all unearthed the 2004 Donovan McNabb and Terrell Owens beef again. And I know you're not on Twitter, but they were tweeting back and forth with one another. And Harrison, do you know who's in the middle of it? The one and only Freddie Mitchell.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's genuinely fantastic.
Like, time is a flat circle. We are back, and we are viewing like a classic original movie, and we got the 2024 sequel is how the national media is viewing it. But guess what? T.O. and Donovan, they had real beef. They didn't like each other. Jalen and AJ, they love each other. They're brothers. They're family. Like, it just drives me crazy how naive and stupid people are. And it will never not amaze me how naive and stupid so many people are. And I hope we can just shut the fuck up about this whole thing now. And the Eagles continue to rattle off wins. They have a massive game this week at home. And we're worried about a fucking comment of somebody saying passing. This is one of the biggest games of the year, and it doesn't even feel like it right now.
I think Jordan Mailata put it best during the press conferences today. He said, "This isn't the Jalen AJ show. This
Yes.
is Steelers week. We are focused on the Steelers, not whatever made up drama is going on in the locker room, because that's exactly what it is. Made up drama. It's not real. These guys are out there trying to AJ's trying to get the ball. Understandable. He's a wide receiver. He loves scoring touchdowns. That's why he's in the NFL doing what he is. But at the end of the day, they're going to get together. They're going to figure their shit out, and then they're going to go down the field and win the goddamn game for us. So if they can, if things are looking the way they are based on what Jordan's saying, their heads are where they need to be. They're not letting any of this distract them, and that is exactly what we need to be happening.
And this is a big time game. This is for the first time in a long time, a matchup between the Eagles and Steelers that has a lot of weight to it. Like the Eagles are 11-2, the Steelers are 10-3. They're both at the top of their divisions. They're fighting for conference seeding. The Steelers are still fighting for a playoff berth overall, but this has like huge game implications, and it's fun that the Eagles are playing these games right now, and it's going to be such a fun matchup across the board. Like the Steelers are playing good football. Right now, when Wes and I recorded on Tuesday, it doesn't sound like George Pickens is going to be available for this game. He's still dealing with an injury, which is a benefit for the Eagles. So you kind of don't really have a primary wide receiver for Quinyanimo Bay to lock up as the warden and Cooper DeJean to shut down in the slot, and Darius Slay, who I genuinely think against the Panthers had his best game of the season,
He did.
to truly have to you still have to obviously respect and pay attention to those receivers. But I brought it up to Wes. I think Pat Freiermuth at the tight end position is who you need to lock in on. And that position battle of Freiermuth, and they have another tight end that Wes was telling me about. He's about he's like an offensive lineman. He's like 6'7", like 280, like huge specimen. It's those two against Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith to a degree, and guarding the tight end properly and making sure that Jalen Carter and Moro Ojomo and Milton Williams and Jordan Davis and Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith and Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean on certain plays get through a Steelers offensive line that is very inexperienced together and doesn't have a lot of overall NFL playing experience. They have a couple of rookies on that line. They have another player playing out of position due to an injury, and their most seasoned veteran is former Eagle Isaac Seumalo playing at left guard. So if the Eagles are able to game wreck on the defensive line, they're going to have a lot of success in this game getting after Russ, who, yes, he's still showing signs of being mobile. We saw that in their game against Cleveland last week, where he had a few designed runs and was able to pick up first downs and everything. But I think if you have Jalen Carter running after you, if you're Russell Wilson, if you have Jordan Davis running after you, if you're Russell Wilson, if you have anyone on our D-line running after Russell Wilson, you have the competitive advantage there and just the athletic advantage to go and create havoc and really put this defense even more on the map than they have been this year.
Yeah. And it's gonna be an issue for Saquon Barkley. I think this is gonna be his biggest challenge of the year to this point, because we haven't really seen a defense with as good a rushing stop as the Steelers defense has. But that's just gonna leave options open for AJ and Devontae. Probably still no Dallas Goedert this week.
Yeah, he's on injured reserve, and he'll be back for the playoffs.
And as long as he's back for the playoffs, that's fine. But maybe we'll see Grant Calcaterra get his second touchdown in back-to-back weeks. And you see his brother's reaction to his first touchdown?
Good. So good.
So good.
Yeah, the Steelers rank fourth in rushing defense this year. They've given up 91.5 rushing yards per game and 12 rushing touchdowns. But the weird thing is when they played the Ravens that one time that the Ravens should have beaten them, Derrick Henry had like 77, 82 yards, something like that, like under 100 yards or something.
Yeah.
But he only had 13 carries.
And Saquon's going to get a much heavier dose of carrying than Derrick Henry.
Right. And we've
also
seen
Saquon's having a better season.
like the Steelers want to play heavy football, and Wes and I really went in depth about this too. And I apologize for continuing to reference that, but it is a reference point. He brought up a great point about the way that the Steelers have been able to stop the run versus when they get gashed. And I think in the personnel that they get gashed the most, the Eagles have been successful running out of that personnel, and that's 11 personnel, 2 wide receivers or more on the outsides, and then you hand it off to Saquon and let him kind of go between the tackles. And if somebody misses him, he's gone and going to break off a large run, because then you bring down their corners and safeties where they have to give respect to AJ, to Devontae, to Jahan Dotson, and it just opens up this offense to be as creative as possible. So I think if Kellen Moore recognizes that, you're going to see a lot of 11 personnel from the Eagles this week. And I think that is not only going to help the Eagles run the ball effectively, I think that's going to open up the passing game a lot. And you look at the Steelers, while they're high in the ranks in terms of rushing defense, they're about middle of the pack when it comes to passing offense. They rank 17th in the NFL this season in passing offense. So kind of like smack dab in the middle. They haven't given up that many passing touchdowns, just 14, which is the same number, oddly enough, that the Eagles have given up. But the Eagles also have the second best passing defense in the NFL, just behind the Tennessee Titans, but they've given up far fewer touchdowns than the Titans this year. But
It's so weird to me that the Tennessee Titans are number 1 pass defense.
So fast. They're number 2 total defense, but they've given up 15 more touchdowns than the Eagles this year.
That makes no sense. It makes 0 sense.
Like the Titans defense has given up as many touchdowns as the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, good Lord.
So
not the Browns.
I just think this is going to be a gutsy and gritty type of game. I think it's perfect time slot too. Nice little 4:25 action. So it'll get dark. It'll get late.
Still could be flexed out.
Well, no, NFL wise, you have to give 2-week notice to teams.
Never mind.
So I genuinely think the Cowboys game is going to be the one that gets flexed, because also the Commanders game, a lot of people thought was going to get flexed to Monday Night Football. That can't happen because the first Commanders game was on Amazon.
Yeah.
And part of that agreement is that if one of those matchups is on Amazon, the broadcast cannot be flexed from Fox or CBS, whoever has the game.
Checks out.
So we still might get Eagles-Cowboys on Sunday Night Football week 17, which would be great because Saquon could break Eric Dickerson's rushing record on Sunday Night Football.
Absolutely. And I mean, it'll be nice to see the Cowboys in primetime again, except this time not with the Simpsons.
Yes. Oh,
yeah. It felt so good to see Lisa Simpson crushing the Cowboys' playoff hopes.
It was so good. So good. But I do think like this is a game where your linebackers can really shine, and you're going to see a lot of matchups with Nakobe and Zach Bond against the Steelers tight ends. You're going to see, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if we see a couple like design blitzes for a CJ Gardner-Johnson or a Cooper DeJean coming in, because the Steelers wide receivers aren't all that, to be chalked up about. Like Van Jefferson, he's a good wide receiver, but he's not like a world beater. Mike Williams still feels like he's trying to find his way in this offense. And I think whether you put Quinion or Darius Slay on him, you can be fine in coverage against Mike Williams. He's a big 50-50 possession receiver. And I think both of those guys do well in those situations. So I think you can afford to use a CJ or a Cooper DeJean, or if he's on the field for whatever reason, Avonte Maddox, in a secondary blitzing opportunity, and kind of surprise Russell Wilson in a lot of ways, where you can come in unguarded and he's not going to get the ball out quick enough, and you pick up a sack from that type of a play there on defense. I think Vic Fangio can get very creative on defense in this matchup.
I agree. And I mean, Vic Fangio coming on board has been the greatest thing to happen to the Eagles since signing Saquon Barkley, which, granted, they happened around the same time. But when you have two great things happening back to back, it's hard to pick which one's better. And it's just been such a boon to this defense. We were dead last in the NFL last year for defense around
so
that point.
bad. So bad.
possibly the worst Eagles defense I've ever seen, and I was around for the dream team. So
Literally.
that says a lot. But this new look defense has been the heart and soul of the rejuvenation of the Philadelphia Eagles. And if anyone's gonna stop Red Hot Russ right now, it's got to be Vic Fangio and our linebackers. And I'm excited to see our offensive line take on their defensive line, because I think that's going to be an all-time war in the trenches. I still think we can come out on top in that one.
Yeah, and I think interior-wise is where it's going to be interesting because Cam Hayward's having a phenomenal year for the Steelers this year.
Yeah.
And Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt are game wreckers in and of their own right, but they are very much go after the quarterback and not much else type of players. You're not going to see them, drop back in coverage. Not that you'd want them to, but they are very much my objective is go get a sack on the quarterback. And if you can prevent that, which I think the Eagles have two great bookends to prevent that in Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson, you really just have to kind of focus on that interior of the D line. And that's where I think the Eagles using a Grant Calcaterra, the Eagles using AJ and Devontae in the middle of the field is going to be pivotal in the passing game. And I think it's going to be, and I know he's been decent in pass blocking from everything I've watched. This is a game where I don't want to see Kenneth Gainwell in pass protection. I need Saquon on the field. I need his brute strength out there. If you're going to be passing and you need Saquon pass blocking, let him pass block. Because Gainwell's going to get fucking blown up by a TJ Watt, by a Patrick Queen at linebacker for the Steelers, by Highsmith. And the Steelers notoriously just have very good linebackers, obviously. And that's going to be something that you kind of have to go strength for strength in that situation, in my opinion. But I do think the Eagles have a lot of advantages in this game. I think the interesting aspect of this, too, is that the Steelers have not won in Philadelphia, I think, since 1965.
Yeah, which is, great optics for us here.
Of course, the perfect week to bring that up is that the Steelers haven't won here since 1965 and the Eagles locker room's on fire. Well, guess what, everyone? It's not on fire. And I think the Eagles have a great opportunity in front of them to shut up every single fucking person that talks into a microphone at WIP, every single person that talks into a microphone at 97.5, and silence a lot of the national media that have paid millions and millions of dollars for who knows what reason to talk on national TV and be talking heads and just sound absolutely stupid and lie.
Yeah, it's a great chance to shut up every single hater, which is everybody who is not a Philadelphia Eagles fan.
100%.
Like, it's the classic Jason Kelce quote. They don't like us. We don't care.
Yep. So, we have a huge in-depth breakdown coming up for you guys after we go around the NFL, but our Eagles breakdown with Harrison and I brought to you by 47 brand. They are truly the best in the game. You guys see me rocking the Eagles 47 brand hat right now. I'm always wearing 47 brand when I'm out and about. They are truly the best hats in the game. They have some amazing apparel as well, and they're just made for your favorite sports fan, whether it's NFL, NBA, NHL, college sports, MLB, minor league baseball. They've got soccer stuff now as well. NASCAR. They just announced a partnership with Dale Earnhardt Jr. With NASCAR stuff. They truly have the best merchandise for your favorite sports fan in the game. Different styles. You can find gifts for everyone on your list. And when you use our link in the description, you get free shipping on every single order with our friends at 47 brand. And if you sign up for their email list, you get 15% off your next order. And right now, you get it by Christmas Eve if you order by December 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time with standard shipping. You get that shipping for free when you use our link in the description. So order by December 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern so that you get it by Christmas Eve. If you want to place an order with 47 brand, you still have a little bit of time, but don't wait. Use our link, get free shipping with 47 brand, and join the 47 family today. Harrison, let's go around the NFL for this week. It's crazy. We're in week 15.
I can't believe it. I can't believe
Insane.
it. The season has flown by.
It's absurd. And our Around the NFL segment brought to you by Paramount Plus. And Harrison, it's one of the greatest rivalries in sports. And you can stream college football on CBS this weekend and watch number 22 Army versus Navy live on Paramount Plus with the Showtime plan. Coverage on Saturday, December 14th, starts at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. This will be the 125th meeting between the two service academies on the gridiron, showcasing the rich history that makes this rivalry so special. Catch epic matchups like this and stream college football on CBS Live with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. This is the destination for football fans. So stream the 125th Army-Navy game live and so much more on Paramount Plus and get started. And guess what, guys? Right before that, on Friday, we've got a doozy of a premiere. It's something that everyone's been waiting for. We've been talking about it on shows for the last week or so, and that's Dexter Original Sin.
Woo.
Starts streaming on Friday the 13th. Perfect time. So witness the beginning as Dexter's darkness first comes to light in Dexter Original Sin, streaming December 13th with the Paramount Plus Showtime plan. When his bloodthirsty urges can't be ignored any longer, young Dexter Morgan must learn to channel his inner darkness as he transitions from student to avenging serial killer with the guidance of his father, Harry. And guys, you know we're going to show you the trailer right here, so take a look.
I am a killer, but I wasn't born this way. I was made by my history, by the people around me. They say it takes a village to raise a killer.
I can get my satisfaction.
That song just never gets old.
No, it hits every single time.
It's so good. So Dexter Original Sin is streaming December 13th with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. And you can get started by using our link in the description to stream Army Navy, Dexter Original Sin, and so much more on Paramount Plus with the Showtime plan and Paramount Plus in general. Use our link, sign up for Paramount Plus today. The NFL schedule is a loaded one this week, Harrison. We got rivalries galore, playoff implications galore. Thursday night football is a doozy. It's the Rams at the 49ers.
Classic
Thursday Night
NFC
Football.
West showdown.
And then we got
this
a
year.
lot of implications there. 49ers clinging on for their playoff lives. Rams trying to separate themselves in that division. Then on Sunday, the 1 o'clock slate, we've got Commanders at the Saints. That's going to be a big time one for the Commanders to get their playoff hopes a little more clear. Then we've got Chiefs at Browns. The Browns have a chance to do the funniest thing ever. The Bengals at the Titans, which is going to be an interesting one to say the least. The Dolphins at the Texans. Texans coming off a bye there. So they're rested and ready to go. That could be a high-scoring affair, no less. Ravens at the Giants, the one team before the Eagles in the NFC that Lamar Jackson has lost to in his career. Granted, Daniel Jones no longer there, so we'll see if Drew Lock can spark some Daniel Jones and Jalen Hurts magic and beat Lamar Jackson in the Meadowlands.
You know he puts on for his city, right?
Puts on for his city. Then we've got one of the grossest games of the week at 1 o'clock. It's Jets at Jaguars.
Oh, God.
Brother, ew.
Ugh. That's
And
going to
then
be disgusting.
Another gross matchup. It's Cowboys at Panthers.
Oh.
Well, 425.
Smack them.
Yeah, 425 is where it all gets juicy. The best matchups this week happen at 425. Buccaneers at Chargers.
Ooh.
We got a battle of horses. Colts at the Broncos.
That could be spicy. That one's gonna be frisky and fun.
Patriots at the Cardinals.
All right.
Bills at Lions.
There it is. That's gonna be a phenomenal showdown.
Steelers at Eagles.
We talked about that one.
And then Sunday Night Football. Packers at the Seahawks. The site of the Fail Mary.
Oh, that's gonna be great.
And then we
Yeah.
have a Monday night doubleheader.
Oh, what? First one since week 1, week 2?
Week 2, week 3, something like that.
Something
The
like that?
first one kicks off at 8:00. It's Bears at Vikings.
Eh. I mean, it was a fun matchup last time they went round.
And then at 8:30, we have Falcons at Raiders.
Eh, that one could be interesting.
The 425 window this week is just impeccable, though, with Bucks, Chargers, Colts, Broncos. Patriots, Cardinals could be very frisky.
Yeah.
Bills, Lions, Steelers, Eagles.
I mean,
That's an all-time slate.
you could get rid of the first 3 games there, just leave it at Bills, Lions, Eagles, Steelers, and that's your lineup of the week right there. Like,
100%.
that Chargers game is gonna be a whole lot of fun, don't get me wrong. But
Oh, yeah.
Bills, Lions, that's one of the showdowns that you dream about this season. Those
Yeah.
are 2 teams playing at full cylinder right now. I mean,
There's a lot of implications for the Eagles in that game, too. The Lions lose. It gives the Eagles an inside track to getting the 1 seed. The Bills lose. You don't know how Josh Allen plays. It gives Saquon an inside track to the MVP.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of implications in that one for
Or,
sure.
both of them could play like dog shit, and then
And we
the
get
Bills
a 17-16 win for the Bills, and
then that helps the Eagles in every single possible fashion.
but
This
yeah,
is that numerical, like, that analysis
big
analysis
brain
that
energy
you look for.
analysis.
Ugh.
Brother, ew.
Ugh.
But it's going to be a great state of NFL action, and a bunch of it is going to be available on Paramount Plus. So check your local listings and stream the NFL this week. And drop a comment in the comment section what games other than Eagles Steelers that you're looking forward to. But without any further ado, I do want to kick it to my sit down with my good friend Wesley Uhler, who, if you're not following Wes on the socials, you're doing yourself a disservice. Wes is truly the best in the game. He worked in Philly for 3 years, part of the Eagles Super Bowl run he was here for, but he is talking on that Steelers radio network, Fox Sports Pittsburgh, and he also hosts the In the Gun podcast, which is a West Virginia football podcast that he hosts with former Philadelphia Eagle and West Virginia football legend Owen Schmidt. So very, very awesome sit down with Wes. It was a total blast, which just insane. I mean, Rich Rodriguez is apparently going back to West Virginia as well, Harrison, to coach the football team. And the In the Gun podcast this week, Pat McAfee joined them. So the Wes Uhler bump is high. The boys doing big time things. And our interview with Wes is brought to you by our friends at Dead Threads. They are truly the best in the game. If you want some of the coolest underground aesthetic sports apparel in the game, look no further than Dead Threads. I've got a bunch of their stuff. I'm still looking to even add to my collection because they have some of the best merch that people are going to be like, where did you get that? Well, I got it at Dead Threads. And right now they have 20% off site-wide for their Christmas sale. Look alive. Check out everything at Dead Threads. I need to get their flyer shirt because it's a skeleton playing hockey on fire with a giant plane flying behind him. I need to get the Philly shirt, giant skeleton that looks like Bryce Harper. Not saying it is, but it looks like Bryce walking up to the plate, giant bell behind him. Dead Threads is truly the best. They've got everything for your favorite sports teams. I want to see for you, Harrison, actually, because they do have
They have
the
a Hoosiers one. I was looking it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say they got you covered with
They got
Indiana.
me covered, especially with the college football playoff up around the corner here.
Exactly. So take 20% off site wide. Use our link in the description to go shop Dead Threads. They are truly the best. We thank Dead Threads for being a partner of the pod. Wes is also brought to you by our friends at Kenwood Beer, the official beer partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's a refreshing light beer, just 4.1% ABV, 120 calories, just 8 grams of carbs. And this holiday season, you still have some time to get it in, about a week. they are doing the gift of beer, everyone. Get beer delivered to your home. For December only, Kenwood Beer is offering home delivery to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware residents. While they can't guarantee a delivery date, if you order before December 18th, there's a good chance it arrives before Christmas Day. It's available in 6-pack 12-ounce cans, 12-pack 12-ounce cans, and 12-pack 19.2-ounce cans, also known as the Big Kenny. So check that out. Order before the 18th of December to have a good chance of it arriving before Christmas Day. And use the Kenwood Beer Kenny tracker to see who's got Kenny's on tap in the Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Maryland, New Jersey, and Delaware areas. You can also get it at your local liquor stores in those markets. Must be 21 or older to do so. And of course, please drink responsibly. And now without any further ado, here is our sit down with the one and only Wesley Uhler.
At the Vineland Municipal Utilities, we understand that when our business community thrives, we all win. As a not-for-profit utility, our reliability, lower cost of operations, and flexibility in meeting customer needs make doing business in Vineland beneficial to your bottom line. What's more, we are able to do so while maintaining our commitment to environmental stewardship. We look forward to helping you achieve your business goals now and for years to come. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
All right, everybody. You know it's Eagles-Steelers week when my fine friend who is on the screen with me right now, and if you're just listening on audio, we appreciate that too. You'll hear his voice in just a moment, but it is the originator of Going Behind Enemy Lines on this podcast, and it is my good friend, the one and only Wesley Uhler. It's Steelers week, baby.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys heard Mike Tomlin on Tuesday, but Mike Tomlin said he wishes they could play this thing in Breezewood or State College or somewhere, half Altoona, maybe. The Pennsylvania State Championship, as Mike Tomlin called it this week. Yeah, and Kyle, as you know, always a fun one for me because born and raised Pittsburgher. This is my 7th season now working for the Steelers and back in my hometown. But I spent 3 very wonderful, very memorable Super Bowl champion years in Philadelphia in 16, 17, and 18. My wife is from Philly. All my in-laws are Eagles season ticket holders. So for a lot of different reasons, it doesn't happen every year. I wish it did, but I'm always jacked up when it's the little turnpike tussle between Philly and Pittsburgh.
It's always good to see it on the schedule, and it's in perfect time slot too. We were talking before we started recording. Nice little 4:25 kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Two
perfect.
teams first place in their division, both fancy themselves Super Bowl contenders. This has lined up to be a lot of fun for sure.
It is a great placement on the schedule, and the first thing I have to ask you is, I feel like I ask you this every time you come on, but it feels like it never goes away. Why do Steelers fans hate Mike Tomlin?
You know, it's funny. I think it's started to come back around a little bit this year for a couple of reasons. One, because I think with Russell Wilson, no matter, love Mike Tomlin, hate Mike Tomlin, pros, cons, whatever, and that's fair to do for any coach. I think Mike Tomlin has shown that when he has a Super Bowl champion, Hall of Fame caliber quarterback, he's going to win a lot of games. And he clearly did not have that the last 2 years, and even honestly, the last couple years of Ben Roethlisberger, when the Steelers were kind of going 9-8, 10-7 every year. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs, but all right, you get blown out by the Browns. All right, you sneak into the playoffs, you go up to Buffalo, and you get blown out by the Bills, but it's a pretty decisive, handy win for Buffalo. I think people are seeing now, okay, you give Mike Tomlin a quarterback again, he can really win a lot of games, and things are much different. He's no offensive savant, but when he's got a leader, when he's got a veteran at that position, I think things look much different, and you've seen that this year. And then Kyle, people know this, right? The Hard Knocks episodes have not been the first behind-the-scenes look. We do that now, that all-access thing in sports, that mic'd-up thing more than we ever did in the past. But at the same time, I don't know how you can watch Hard Knocks and a really good organization in the Ravens and an organization in the Bengals that's been to AFC Championship games and a Super Bowl not too long ago. Okay, the Browns is the Browns. We all know that. And kind of juxtapose those things and go, man, Mike Tomlin he's a leader of men. Like we can criticize him for the 3.5 hours on Sundays, right? But from Monday through Saturday, I'm hard pressed to think that there's anybody better at getting his guys ready, getting his guys to buy into what they're doing. And so you're right. It's a very weird back and forth pendulum of, the team goes 10-7 and one and done in the playoffs, and let's get rid of this guy, to now the team's in first place and looking like they're going to host a playoff game, and people are believing again that this Super Bowl ceiling is really there. And Mike Tomlin's the star of Hard Knocks, right? I think people are coming back around a little bit. But you're right. There is certainly, I don't want to call them a majority, but a large enough faction of Steelers fans that are just waiting, whether it's in the first round of the playoffs, whether it's in the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, for the Steelers to lose and their season to be over so they can blame Mike Tomlin. It's always been a very interesting dynamic, to say the least.
Because I feel like I'm currently going through a not as successful situation as Mike Tomlin, but in terms of 4 years, Nick Sirianni's been a damn good coach, and for whatever
but
reason,
win the Super Bowl, right?
Everyone hates, the aggressiveness, but I think maturing in your NFL fandom is realizing that Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni are the same but different. One is, grizzled, went to Texas A&M, played in the NFL, and the other one's an upstate New York high school football player who just loves ball. But at the end of the day, they're the same coach, just one wants to bite your kneecaps and the other one is just, it's Nick Sirianni.
It's Italian-American discrimination.
He's a paisan. He's everything that Philadelphia fans have been clamoring for since Buddy Ryan, and yet they want to run him out of town.
You know what? It's funny. I hadn't thought about this in the context of Steelers-Eagles this weekend, but you led me right into a light bulb moment. Both of these teams have head coaches that I think really mirror the organization, the fan base, the town in which they go. Like Mike Tomlin has that black Air Force, time to go to work, like no one in Pittsburgh cares, just get the job done type attitude.
Shut your ass up.
Wants to play physical football, shut your ass up, play physical football, no nonsense, kind of very Yinzer in that regard. Sirianni, he's a little vocal. He's a little boisterous. He'll tell you how good he is. He'll tell you how awesome everything is. I think that kind of, in ways, can reflect maybe the Philadelphian. At times, Philly's always been a weird juxtaposition for me because the sports teams to Philly fans are the best, but they'll also criticize them. You can't criticize them. You can't criticize the city, but the city is the best and the sports teams are the best unless we want to say something about it, right? It's a really cool dynamic. It, in a much bigger scale, kind of reminds me of West Virginia in that regard, right? Like, my whole family's from West Virginia. I went to WVU. And West Virginians very much so, like, don't talk about us, all right? But we'll talk about us, but you don't talk about us. Philly's like that on steroids. It's two head coaches that I think match the energy of their fan bases. And sometimes that does, in a weird way, like cause heads to butt. But I think you're right. I think when you take a step back, it's a good situation to be in for both.
Yeah, and I think this game is going to be almost a litmus test for Nick Sirianni in terms of like that stigma of coaching chess match going up against Mike Tomlin, and just seeing where a lot of people are saying the first quarter started really slow for the Eagles this year, time and time again, and a lot of people are thinking it's Sirianni kind of calling the scripted plays, and then once that's over, Kellen Moore takes over, and then you see the offense really come to life. But I think this will really show a lot about this first quarter offense for the Eagles going up against the Steelers defense that year over year is always regarded in that breath of they are the best in the league. They obviously have one of the best, in TJ Watt. And I think overall the Steelers defense year over year is that symbol of consistency when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. And, on offense, especially this week, because we got the old local radio station stoking the flames over there.
My
down
former
at Chickies
employer.
and Pete's. Yeah. They're causing a ruckus, and it's going to be fascinating to see, because it's not like you're going up against a first-year head coach where, Sirianni can kind of maneuver around that. Kellen Moore can kind of maneuver around that.
Sure.
If Jalen Hurts says, oh, yeah, I'm going to feed A.J. Brown, A.J. Brown's going to have to be himself, his normal self, and always be open, but it's not going to be just as easy as force feed the ball to A.J. Brown. You still have to be creative against the Steelers defense if you want to win.
No doubt. And, the Steelers defense, Kyle, is a very interesting conversation to me because in the modern conversation of defense, right? 2024 defense, like we all know, it's not holding teams to 13 points and 250 yards anymore. That's just not the conversation. It's situational football, it's red zone football, it's possession down football, and it's winning turnover margins, right? I mean, that's really what makes a great defense. And I think obviously your scoring defense as well, too. Just how often you can keep teams off the scoreboard. The Steelers have done well in a lot of those regards, while at the same time hemorrhaging too many yards and too many chunk plays. So it's been a very interesting dynamic of, for in large part against Cleveland this past Sunday, they put the clamps down on Jameis Winston and that Browns offense that had been playing pretty well for a few weeks under Jameis. Second, Browns start with a 3-and-out, but then second drive of the game, they march right down the field. Jameis throws a 35-yard touchdown pass to Jerry Jeudy. And it's like, what's going on, guys? And then the rest of the game, they figure it out and they put the clamps down. They kind of dug themselves a hole big time against the Bengals a couple weeks ago. Russell Wilson throws a pick six on the Steelers' first drive of the game. Steelers defense gives up a couple long drives that they're able to bend, not break, and the Steelers end up chasing that game the whole first half, and they come back and win in the second half. Similar thing happened in Washington when they came back and beat the Commanders. Similar thing happened in Indy early on in the season. The Steelers weren't able to come back and win that one. Indy scored on their first 3 possessions of the game. Bang, bang, bang. And then the Steelers' defense was lights out. It's been very weird in that dynamic. So if you're telling me the Eagles' offense is struggling with slow starts, the Steelers' defense, I think, has been struggling a little bit with slow starts. Not some massive issue, but it hasn't been a strength of theirs, certainly. That's an interesting dynamic for when that ball goes in the air at 4:30 on Sunday, and particularly who wins the coin toss and how do they attack that. Because, I think the Steelers' defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense, but saying they've started slow might be being a little too dramatic, but they certainly haven't come out of the gates with their hair on fire in large part lately and the season as a whole.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. I'll be shocked if the Eagles score in the first quarter on Sunday.
Okay. Interesting.
That has been their kryptonite. I think there may be 1, maybe 2 games this entire season they've scored points in the first quarter.
Okay. Well, Steelers offense has been starting slow too, so maybe it'll be one of those games where at halftime it's like 7-3 or 10-7 or something, and everyone's kind of like, what's going on? And then third quarter, it's like bang, 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 couple quick scoring drives.
Which is typically what happens for the Eagles. They adjust, and I think it's been fascinating to watch now that my MVP, Saquon Barkley, is here.
Mm-hmm.
He wears down defenses as the game goes on. You see him breaking off these long 50, 60, 70-yard runs for touchdowns late in games because the Eagles have been smash mouth football in between the tackles early in the game, wearing down that defensive line, wearing down that front seven. And then Saquon's able to find the hole when somebody misses an assignment by a second and he's gone. How do you see the Steelers defense matching up against Saquon Barkley and the way he's running the football right now?
Yeah, this to me, Kyle, is kind of the game within the game. If you had to pick one kind of matchup segment type thing to talk about that's going to have the most direct outcome to this, I think it's how the Steelers defensive front does against Saquon and that offensive line. I mean, you look at the offensive line for the Eagles, Kyle, and it's like beef. I mean, there is not like I think like 6'3", 310 pounds is the smallest guy on your offensive line. Landon Dickerson's a monster. Lane Johnson's a monster. Mailata's a monster. Becton's a monster. I mean, they are big dudes against a Steelers defensive front that, guys like TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith that are just absolute surgeons, but not necessarily in that beefy way. Cam Hayward is a big dude, and for me, he's kind of the most under-discussed aspect of the Steelers right now. He's having an incredible season. Kyle, I don't know if you do this like I do, but I like to reference Pro Football Focus like when it suits my argument, but then just take a dump on them at any other times. I mean, we're week 15 here in the National Football League. That's a lot of data points. They have Cam Hayward ranked as the number 1 interior defensive lineman in the NFL. They had him ahead of Dexter Lawrence before he got hurt. They've got him ahead of Chris Jones and the outstanding year that he's having in Kansas City. Guys like Jalen Carter as well, too, having really good years. Cam Hayward has been outstanding. But beside him, Larry Ogunjobi's been up and down. Keanu Benton, second-year guy, has been up and down. Played really well this past Sunday against Cleveland, but had been quiet for a couple weeks. If they can kind of not let Cam Hayward wreck the game, right? Like, you know how you have, it's the same conversation you used to have about Fletcher Cox. Like, if you can just manage this guy, make somebody else kill us, don't let this guy kill us, I think the Eagles are going to be able to have some success. I don't think it'll be a disaster for the Steelers, but the Steelers' defensive front, Kyle, is made more to go after quarterbacks than it is to stop the run. That is just the way they're designed. That's the way they're built. That doesn't mean that they can't stop the run. None of that. But they don't have as many of the big thumping types. They have more of the guys who can move in space. And against that offensive line, against Saquon Barkley, I'll be very interested to see how that plays out. Patrick Queen is going to be big in this conversation as well, too. Obviously, first year with the Steelers, was signed from the Baltimore Ravens, the middle linebacker for the Steelers. I think he's playing some of his best football of the season right now. You know, coming over from a division rival, I think it took him a little time to get ingrained in the defense, but it looks like the game's really slowed down for him. Deshaun Elliott, same type of thing. Joining the Steelers, the strong safety from Miami this past offseason as a free agent. Those two guys are by far the Steelers' best second-level tacklers, if you will. And so a lot of it is going to come down to those guys. Can the defensive front for the Steelers do just enough so PQ and Deshaun Elliott can go attack Saquon Barkley downhill? They need to, because if not, it could be a very long afternoon. They've done a pretty solid job against some good running backs this year. You know, Derrick Henry, I think, had 77 yards, 80 yards against the Steelers. They didn't completely shut him down, but you'll take that against a guy like that every time, right? Jonathan Taylor and the Colts. Bijan Robinson when they played the Falcons. Like, they've done a good job of keeping the lid on some of these really talented running backs. But I think Saquon and what he's doing this year is the ultimate test in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, too, because obviously being in the AFC North, you see Lamar Jackson twice a year, and the Steelers historically have had great success playing against Lamar Jackson. So I find that kind of an edge, too, when you guys are preparing for this Eagles matchup, knowing that Jalen Hurts can run the ball. We saw him rip off a 35-yard run that set up a touchdown for the Eagles against the Panthers last week. I think that's an interesting aspect, too, where you say the defense is built to go after the quarterback. How do you kind of see it evolving if Jalen Hurts decides on that RPO or designed run, keeps it? How does that factor into the Steelers', defensive mindset, knowing that Jalen has the ability to run and he's a little bit thicker than Lamar Jackson is? Lamar's a little bit more elusive. I think Jalen's more of a bruising type of runner because he's got those strong legs and the old trope, he squats 600 pounds,
No doubt.
How do you see that kind of playing into the Steelers' approach on defense with Jalen's ability to run the ball and the way he runs it?
Yeah, man, that's a great follow-up question, actually. And real quick, I said Jonathan Stewart. I combined Jon Stewart, the late-night TV host, with Jonathan Taylor, the Colts running back. That's what I meant. Sorry, that's been bothering me.
Or former Carolina Panthers running back, Jonathan Stewart.
That's where I kind of, I went with former Carolina Panthers and not the current Colts guy. Same first name, different last name. Hopefully, you guys were picking up what I was putting down. That's a big part of the reason, though. It's a great point by you and a great example bringing Lamar Jackson into this. Of the Steelers have had a lot of success against, if you want to say, mobile quarterbacks for lack of a better descriptor. And I think that's a loaded statement, right? Is Patrick Mahomes a mobile quarterback, or can he just be mobile when he needs to? Is Joe Burrow a mobile quarterback, and can he just be mobile when he needs to? Guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, different conversation. Jalen Hurts as well, too. But the Steelers have done so well against, Lamar's record is 1-5 against the Steelers, and he's a two-time MVP and he kills everybody else, right? He's 1-5 against Pittsburgh. It's only been a one-game sample size, and he's still a rookie. But Jaden Daniels, it was kind of that Steelers game where some of his world-beating tendencies started to come back down to earth a little bit. And so much of that is what the Steelers are able to do with just the four-man front. Because TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, those guys, their versatility, I think, as pass rushers is valuable. They are guys, like we kind of just talked about a minute ago, that when you can just line it up and run downhill at them, they can struggle. but they are also very good in those unknown situations. Is this pass? Is this run? Is this RPO? Of maintaining their integrity, maintaining their gap, doing their job to make life difficult on the quarterback and not make that decision easy. They do a great job of forcing you to move the pocket. Maybe that's the best way to put it. With Cam Hayward, with Alex Highsmith, with TJ Watt, whether it's Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi on the inside, they've been doing this 3 edge rusher thing now with Nick Herbig and Preston Smith ever since they acquired him at the trade deadline from Green Bay, where they've been bringing those guys in a lot too. And they just really have the ability, Kyle, to move a pocket, to collapse a pocket while maintaining their integrity. And when you're a guy like Lamar Jackson, that's really tough to read. Jaden Daniels, that's really tough to read because you drop back, your reads aren't okay. First read, second read, not there. You're thinking about running this thing, but then all of a sudden the pocket is collapsed on you and there's not that acres of space that you usually have to dice through the A gap or the B gap. And all of a sudden, there's 7-8 yards, 9-10 yards of territory before anyone, even the closest defender, is near to you. So I think that's the way they do it. Those front 4 being responsibly sound, having that integrity, being able to read and diagnose those things quickly because they've seen so much of it in preparation for Lamar Jackson. I think that's why they've been able to have so much success. And again, this is a pretty decent sample size now of 3-4 years against those dual threat, mobile, however you want to label them, type quarterbacks.
And I think it's interesting too because I feel like even Eagles fans don't realize this, but this season is going to end regular season wise with the on paper projected starting offense for the Eagles playing a total of 2 games together this year.
Wow. That's important. I mean, that stuff
Due-
matters.
Due to injury.
Like Kyle, look at the game we saw on Monday Night Football this week between the Bengals and the Cowboys. You have no love lost for the Cowboys. I got no love lost for the Bengals. I think we can both agree, though, if they had more fortune in the health department this year, they'd probably still be playing for at least a playoff berth down the stretch. That's massive, and that's a great point by you. That is one area now, and I don't know if you were going to ask me about this, so I'm not trying to step on your toes. The Steelers are pretty fortunate right now, I think, to have a good bill of health. Relatively, it is the National Football League. Mm-hmm. You're going to have guys injured, but you hope you can minimize those and not have them be your most important cogs, your most key contributors. George Pickens, it sounds like he's not going to play Sunday afternoon in Philadelphia, though, and he is by far, other than the quarterback, but that's just about every team in the National Football League, the Steelers' most important piece of that offense. He is by far the Steelers' most dynamic and talented playmaker on that offense. They were able to survive and get it done against Cleveland this past weekend at home, but that is much different than going to Philadelphia against this Eagles team where Mike Williams, Van Jefferson, and Calvin Austin and Scotty Miller are going to be your wide receivers against the exciting whites and everything that Philadelphia has going on in that secondary and that defense. So that's a big question mark for me because right at the time where it started to feel like the Steelers offense was really humming, you get that win in Cincinnati, you score 44 points, Kyle, which I know for you guys in Philly, you've seen that a little bit. We haven't seen that since Ben Roethlisberger was like Ben Roethlisberger, and Antonio Brown and Lev Bell and those guys were doing their thing. The Steelers won that game in Cincinnati 2 weeks ago, 44-38. It was the first time in the franchise history, 92 years, that the Steelers gave up 38 or more points on the road and won a game. It really felt like the offense was hitting their stride and on all cylinders, and you're doing it in the run game, you're doing it in the pass game, you're doing it over the middle of the field with Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington in the tight ends. And then here goes the most important piece of that conversation, other than the quarterback, and George Pickens didn't play last week against Cleveland. Mike Tomlin's weekly press conference on Tuesdays didn't rule him out, but didn't sound overly optimistic either. And that, I think, could be a huge storyline for this Steelers offense going into Sunday.
Yeah, I did want to get into George Pickens. I do have one more thing on the defense too, because it kind of parallels the Ravens again a little bit. And I see, the amount of times that you guys play the Ravens, year over year and everything. There's a lot of film I think you can pull from this.
No doubt.
With Dallas Goedert being out due to injury, he's on injured reserve now until the playoffs. Grant Calcaterra stepped up. He's been fantastic. we got your old Bengals enemy CJ Uzama in the building doing his thing too. But the Eagles have implemented a fullback into their offense this year, kind of mid-season. Ben Van Summerman gets injured. They brought in another fullback who has one of the best names of all time, Kari Blasingame.
It's a great name.
It's a great name to be running in front of Saquon Barkley. How do you kind of view a team that does operate with the multi-tight ends with a fullback that you kind of see the Ravens do with a Pat Ricard coming in as well to kind of, supplement some of the pressure that a TJ Watt, a Highsmith can bring in from those edges and have an extra blocker in there to give Jalen Hurts a little bit more time in the passing game too, because I think a lot of Eagles fans this year have been complaining about Jalen's just got to get rid of the ball. Wide receivers aren't open. You just got to throw the ball away. Don't take the hits. What do you think the fullback aspect or the double tight end with a fullback type of offense kind of does when it comes to kind of stalling what TJ Watt and Highsmith do with that edge rush?
Yeah. So statistically, right, Kyle, if I just want to go, because again, I mean, we're 14, 13 games into the season now. We got a good amount of data points. Surprisingly, the Steelers' defense has been much better in the run against 12 and 13 personnel, bigger personnel, if I'm using layman's football terms, right? Additional tight ends, less wide receivers, additional tight ends, more beef, if you will, right? Where they've gotten more gashed in the run game in 11 personnel. So a guy that I work with, Matt Williamson, does this crazy statistics Bible through the Steelers throughout the season, and like 70-some% of the time the Steelers are getting run against is in 11 personnel. And the Steelers defense in 11 personnel, which is when the other team, right, only has one tight end and one running back, so 3 wide receivers out there, it's like they're one of the worst run defenses in 11 personnel in the NFL. If you can make them go lighter, if you can spread them out a little bit, you can have success running the ball. Whereas the Steelers have actually done pretty well against bigger personnel in seemingly predictable run situations. I was very confused. Like, I know it seems like we both keep going back to the Ravens here, but the Steelers' opponent 3 weeks ago in Baltimore, I kind of talked about how they did a good job of keeping the lid on Derrick Henry, right? He had 70-some rushing yards. You'll take that all day against Derrick Henry. He also only had 13 carries, Kyle, which was bizarre to me because he was by far the most effective. They were doing that same thing. They've got weapons on the outside now too, right there in Baltimore. It's not like a few years ago when Lamar didn't really, there wasn't Zay Flowers. There weren't these guys commanding your attention other than Mark Andrews. They've got legit weapons on the outside now. If they could get the Steelers to go into 11 personnel, they'd get the ball Derrick Henry. He was going 6, 7, 8 yards a clip, but they just got away from that for some reason. It made no sense to me. After the game, we're sitting there. I produce the post-game show. I do like a quick little post-game recap, and then I produce the post-game show that we do on the Steelers radio network. And I'm looking down our stats guy comes in the booth and gives us the final stats packet. I'm like, how the hell did Derrick Henry only have 13 carries? He's going for 7 yards a clip. Like, what are we doing here? But I think it was because Baltimore likes to do so much of their running out of that heavier personnel, and they weren't having success with it when they were doing that. But it almost seemed like a little bit of coaching malpractice to not realize, okay, we're gashing these guys, though, when we spread them out. So to me, that's a very interesting one because the Eagles want to play heavy football. The Steelers want to play heavy football. How does that all play out? But if I'm Philadelphia, Kyle, I want A.J. Brown and I want Devontae Smith out there, and I want the Steelers to have to acknowledge those guys, spread them out, and then bang, I'm going to run right up the heart of that defense, and Saquon's going to make one guy miss, and we're going to be knocking off 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14-yard runs. That's another one of those very interesting game within the games because I think both teams do like that, right? Strap it up, frying pan to the forehead style football, if you will. But I think it really might behoove the Eagles to try and dress that thing up a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I think that's when the Eagles have been at their best on offense this year, too, is you have AJ and Devontae out wide. You have Jahan Dotson in the slot, and you give it off to Saquon Barkley because you're making those corners have to play honest. You're bringing the safeties up. You're having the linebackers kind of, shifting around, and that's why I laugh when you got the WIPs and the fanatics and everything talking about, oh, we need to get the passing game going more. We need AJ Brown and Devontae involved more. The Eagles have been at their best. All Chuck and Mount Airy and Butch from Manayunk have been clamoring for the Eagles to play smash mouth running football. since the 80s, and now we're doing it, and now all of a sudden we have a problem with it. It's like you pick one
Well,
or the
one
other,
thing,
guys.
like when you do the Pittsburgh and Philly Venn diagram thing, right? There's not as much commonality in the middle, I think, as outsiders would think. There certainly is, but not as much as outsiders would think. But one of those things that is square in the middle is Philadelphia and Pittsburgh sports fans, particularly when it comes to football. Every snap, every series, every play, every quarter, every game is an indictment on everyone.
Yes.
Right? Like one bad series, that offensive coordinator sucks. One missed block and that left guard can't play, right? Like one bad coverage and one blown coverage and that defensive coordinator and that safety, we got to get them out of here. So I do, along the same lines of like the Mike Tomlin conversation, it's like sometimes we just want something different no matter what, right? Like, oh, well, we need to be doing this. All right, well, then you start winning that way. Well, we need to go back to being more sexy. I don't know. It is one thing that Steelers and Eagles and Philadelphians and Pittsburghers have in common, I think, is that like when it comes to our sports teams, even when we're both first place in our division, towards the top of the conference, still playing for buys and seeding and all that important stuff, we're gonna find plenty to gripe about. Don't you worry.
It's so funny how, and I talked about this on an episode that came out earlier this week. We have won 9 games in a row coming out of a bye week. The last time this Eagles team lost, it was still regular season Phillies baseball going on. We didn't even have the Mets meltdown yet. It was still regular season. They were playing in DC. That's the last time they lost.
That's impressive. That's impressive. And it really is like from afar, Kyle, it doesn't seem that way. And you know,
Right.
like I think I'm a little more tapped into the Philly landscape than your typical Yinzer because I lived there for 3 years. I got family from there, all those friends from there, all those different things. But like to me, it seems so volatile. Like since October, like so every Thursday on the show that I do with Arthur Moats, who's a former Steelers and Bills linebacker, we do a show on Fox Sports Pittsburgh at noon every single day. We have been taught, like we do Thursday power rankings every week. And I've had Philly like in my top 5 or around my top 5 the whole year. But every week I'm like, doesn't this feel volatile? Doesn't this feel like it's about to blow up? Like Nick Sirianni's fighting with a fan, some players saying something in some interview. Like it's just, it's a very, to me, from 320 miles across the Commonwealth here on the other side of the state, the temperature of the team and the fan base doesn't feel like an 11-2 team. It's bizarre.
No. It feels like so many people, media, fans, the common NFL fan, still can't let go of what happened at the end of 2023. And it's like, guys, a lot has changed. Matt Patricia and Sean Desai are not coaching the defense. Brian Johnson's in Washington. We have competent coordinator. We have the number 1 overall defense in the NFL right now across a number of ranking systems.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just be happy? We're 11-2. Let's enjoy this. To me, it feels way. And Nick Sirianni said this morning with his morning radio hit. It feels a lot more like 2022 in the locker room than it does 2023. And to me, and I think a lot of normal fans, it feels that way. It feels like the Eagles are winning. You see them in the locker room. They're having fun. It's football is an emotional game. And I feel like anyone who hasn't either played or been around the sport doesn't realize that what A.J. Brown says with a one-word answer after a game where he has 43 yards, he's a competitor. He wants to win, and he knows what this team is capable of doing, and that's what he wants to see. And people want to say, oh, or Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown, is their friendship over? It's like, Jalen Hurts is A.J. Brown's daughter's godfather. Like, that's wow. Family. Yeah, like, Jalen Hurts was at A.J. Brown's draft party when he got drafted by the Titans, and nobody remembers that. They've been friends for a long time. They are family, awesome. And it just feels like the inner workings. They just want to tear it down, and it's like, do we not remember what happened when we didn't have a receiver and a quarterback that were this close, that have somehow resurfaced their beef this week as well? because it's 2004 all over again, and Donovan McNabb and T.O. are fighting on social media.
Exactly right.
And who's right in the middle is Freddie
Waiting
Mitchell.
for AJ Brown to do sit-ups in his driveway with a bunch of cameras around, right? But yeah,
It's
no,
like-
man, like it's to say Russell Wilson has one bad series, and it's people are like, get Justin Fields back in there. Get Justin Fields back in there. I mean, people are always looking for that drama angle, and it is one of the reasons why I love it when sports fans are like, I don't like dramas. I don't like those rom-com movies or those Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That's not for me. Brother, you're right, but you just get it in a different way. We all love our drama, okay? It just depends. Some people dress it up with their political elections. Some people dress it up with their celebrities. Some people dress it up with their sports teams. But it unfortunately fuels so much of what's at the forefront of the conversation. And I'm not breaking any news here. You know, that it's just the negativity sells much more than the positivity does, even when you're 11-2.
Yeah, and the normal people dress it up by watching 90 Day Fiancé and all the spinoffs of that. Not saying I'm a normal person, but hey, that's fun drama right there, baby. Makes me feel normal.
Some of us refresh our Twitter feed every 15 seconds because our alma mater's looking for a new head football coach. I mean, we're all getting it in different ways, baby.
We're suckers for it. Yeah, talk to me about the George Pickens experience, because from afar it is one of the most fascinating. It feels like Mike Tomlin, it's required for him to have a, for lack of a better term, head case type of player on the roster, and you just go through the history of the players Mike Tomlin has coached, and it's just like he's a sucker for just having somebody making a ruckus.
Mike Wallace to Antonio Brown to Juju to Chase Claypool to George Pickens. I'm sure I'm probably forgetting.
Bell.
I mean, yes, he was not a wide receiver, but yes, same church, different pew. I'm probably forgetting a name or two in there as well. Big Ben, no doubt. I mean, and that is, you know, it's funny with that as well. Like, I think it is an incredible testament to Mike Tomlin that most of those guys, not all those guys, but most of those guys, the second they leave Pittsburgh, they are not the same. And that's not everybody that leaves the Steelers. There's been plenty of people that have left the Steelers and gone on and had success. Mike Hilton's doing it right now in Cincinnati. Emmanuel Sanders did it, won a Super Bowl with Denver and with Peyton Manning. I think there's sometimes this adage that, like, when you leave the Steelers, it's never the same. No, but if you're a diva wide receiver or running back who leaves Mike Tomlin, I think it's never the same. And this is some of that. You see it in Hard Knocks as well, too. You see it sometimes. But, man, the way that he can connect with these young guys. Kyle, the one thing, like you kind of mentioned a minute ago, there's certain things in football that if you're not around the sport, it's tough to articulate. And I think that's true about any sport, but especially football, in one where there's so few amount of games, the sample size is so small, the indictment, the judgment, those data points are way less than 162 game baseball, 82 game NBA or NHL season. Man, Mike Tomlin just knows that in leadership, and this is one of those things that everybody can relate to. I don't care if you've never played football or never even been to a football field in your life. Everybody's buttons are different that you have to push, right? Mm-hmm. The way you talk to employee A is different than the way you talk to employee F, who is different than the way you talk to employee W. It just, the way people tick, the way people respond across the world, it's different. If you've worked in any type of workplace setting, you know this. If you have children, you know this, right? The way you discipline one child is not the same way you discipline the other child. If you've ever been a school teacher or anything like this, you know this. And man, Mike Tomlin, just for whatever reason, for the guys that have some loose screws in their head, if you will, for the guys that can not always be focused on football as their foremost priority all the time, he just, for whatever reason, has a way to keep those guys locked in. And I think this year in particular with George Pickens, he was clearly frustrated down the stretch last year when the Steelers were going through that Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph cycle at the end of the year. I think he found it a little bit with Mason in the sense that Mason would just give him the football. Mm-hmm. Comes back this year, and I think there was some frustration early on with Justin Fields. But then Russell Wilson comes in right away, and it's like 3 or 4 weeks of George Pickens, 100 yards, touchdowns, looking great. He has ridden that emotional roller coaster. When things are going well for the Steelers offense and for him, he's engaged, he's locked in, no problem. That pick six happens in Cincinnati that I referenced earlier. He feels like he got dragged down by the helmet. It should have been a penalty. He's 4-letter word in the referee walking off the field. Mike Tomlin grabs him and he says, hey, look, there's 13 minutes left in the first quarter. That play ain't going to decide this game. I need you. That play ain't going to decide this game. Next series, George Pickens scores a touchdown. Later on in the game, he has a massive third down catch conversion for the Steelers to keep the chains rolling. He keeps him locked in where I think some other guys would have lost the young, the diva, the immature, however you want to label it, playmaker, wide receiver that we see across the NFL. He just, man, he knows how to push these guys' buttons. He knows when to say whoa and to kind of back off. He knows when to sick them. That's a Mike Tomlinism, knowing the difference between whoa and sick them. He likes to reference that sometimes. He knows when he needs to get on these guys. He knows when it's time to pull back a little bit. And how that relates to George Pickens' long-term future in Pittsburgh, if they want to give him a big contract and pay him like he's one of those dudes, I'm not sure. But, man, it to me has been impressive how there's been so many times where it felt like, all right, George is about to crash out here. And instead, he ends up making the big play. That's been, I think, a direct testament to Mike Tomlin and Zach Azzani, the Steelers wide receiver coach, who this is his first year in that position as well. And he was kind of brought in as a disciplinarian, a good cop, bad cop with Tomlin a little bit. And I think he deserves some credit as well, too, because, like I said, in all those moments where it seemed like number 14 might be about to crash out, he stayed locked in and made plays. And I don't know if he's going to be dressed to do that Sunday at the Link, but they are certainly going to need him to do that the next week in Baltimore, and then on Christmas against Kansas City, and then obviously when we get to January and the postseason is here.
Which is so funny because I feel like everyone in Philly feels like A.J. Brown's personality is what George Pickens is. And I feel like they're completely polar opposite. They're both wildly talented, but they are nowhere near the same type of personality at all.
George Pickens is a different cat. He is a different cat. He marches to the beat of his own drum. And you know what? We all see, everybody knows that's why he was drafted in the second round. That's why there were 7 different wide receivers drafted before George Pickens in his own draft class. It was because of some of those. I don't want to make it seem like George Pickens is a bad guy.
Right.
Like, I don't think he's out there doing criminal stuff. Just maybe the immaturity, if you will, the selfishness, some ego, that type of thing of, I'm the best player on the field, give me the ball, and if you don't, I'm going to throw a fit about it. That's why he was available at pick 51 for the Steelers. That's why 7 wide receivers went ahead of him, even though he might have been the second or third best one in that class. That's why still you don't know what the long-term future looks like, but what you know for sure is you need him locked in. And again, yeah, Kyle, sometimes that diva wide receiver thing gets overblown. Like, there is a difference to me between just being a competitor versus having a massive ego. And a lot of guys walk that tight line pretty well. I think A.J. Brown does. I think GP has walked that tight line well this year. I don't think he did necessarily in the past. But yeah, believe me, it's one of those, not to the same extent as Antonio Brown, but if George Pickens ends up next year being his last year in Pittsburgh, they decide they don't want to pay him and they're going to let him walk in free agency, I'll be very interested to see what the rest of his career looks like away from Mike Tomlin.
Another one that left Pittsburgh is having a great career too that I thought of when you brought that up, James Conner.
James Conner is a great one as well too. And somebody that I mentioned, a wide receiver I forgot to mention that went the opposite way, Deontay Johnson. And he's suspended for Baltimore this past week.
He was ducking the birds.
He was ducking the birds. That's the one that I was forgetting, the other one. But yeah, you're right. No, there's been a lot of those guys that have gone on to have success elsewhere. But again, most of them were not the egotistical diva, selfish type. They were the James Conner, put your freaking head down and kick cancer's ass type, right? They're the Mike Hilton, I'm undrafted out of the SEC and I end up being one of the best slot corners in the NFL type. But that is this is his 18th season as the Steelers head coach. Like, it's just insane. And again, it's like one of those things I like to say as a host, data points. There's a lot of data points to prove that Mike Tomlin might not be perfect for those 3 hours on Sundays. But man, from Monday through Sunday morning, there is nobody better at getting his guys ready and keeping them locked in.
And I know the last time you were on, we talked about this, and I was just wondering what magical well the Steelers pulled their linebackers from. It feels like the Eagles found that well, Wes. We got 2 stud linebackers in the building. We
do.
brought one of them up from New Orleans, and one's homegrown, but it's nice to have linebackers for once on this football team.
I don't know what happened last. The Eagles drafting a linebacker in the first round, or the Steelers winning in Philadelphia. The Steelers haven't won in Philadelphia since 1965. I think it was 78 or 79 the last time the Eagles drafted a linebacker in the first round. So it's been the Steelers winning in Philadelphia, but those are 2 rare occurrences. And you're right. It was always so funny to me, like the 3 years that I worked with the Eagles in WIP in Pittsburgh, like other than quarterback, because that's the way it is everywhere, like linebacker drives the conversation. You know what I mean? The Steelers went from the golden eras of like the Lamberts and the Hams and those guys, and then they rolled that into the 90s with the Kevin Greens and the Jason Gildens and the Levon Kirklands, and then that rolled into James Harrison and Joey Porter and Lamar Woodley and James Ferrier, and now TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and Patrick Queenie, a guy like Bud Dupree who did pretty well in Pittsburgh. I mean, Ryan Shazier, I think, would be a Hall of Fame type career if he wouldn't have had his devastating injury. The juxtaposition of those 2 organizations has been funny in that regard. But you're right. I mean, this, like, everyone rightfully so is talking about the Eagles offense because of some of the drama in the pass game and because of how outstanding the run game and Saquon Barkley have been. But this defense, to me, man, has dudes at every level. And Eagles defenses in the past, they always had dudes on the line of scrimmage and they always had dudes in the secondary, but not necessarily in the middle of the park there. And you know what? Like, one of the things that Mike Tomlin has said, because, I mentioned Ryan Shazier there, Kyle, the Steelers went year after year after year of trying to turn over that linebacker position after Shazier, right? They went up and drafted Devin Bush. That didn't work out. They traded for Joe Schobert. That didn't work out. They went and got a big name free agent like Mark Barron. That didn't work out. I mean, they had really kind of gone through those guys. Cole Holcomb last year was doing well. They signed him from Washington, but then he shatters his knee around Halloween. Mike Tomlin has repeatedly said you can't play fast as a defense if you're not fast in the middle of your defense. And at times when the Steelers were good in the secondary, but good on the defensive line in that post-Ryan Shazier era, that was ultimately their undoing. It was they didn't have the guys in the middle of the field who could move to allow the defense to play the rest of the way that it should and it was capable of. And I think maybe we saw some of that from the Eagles in the past, but we're not seeing that now. They have got the guys in the middle of that defense that allow them to play fast as a defense. And I mean, that's why I think the short list of Super Bowl contenders in the NFL right now is very, very small. I think it's the Lions and the Eagles. I think it's the Chiefs and the Bills. And then I'm starting to really believe the Steelers might be that 5th one. I want to see how they handle these next 3 weeks here of at Philly, at Baltimore, and then at home against Kansas City. But so much of that is because of how all those defenses play fast. They play physical, and they could take the ball away. And like you and I were talking about earlier, when you're kind of drawing up what you want for a good, elite, modern defense and what that means in the constructs of football now, I think that's at the top of your list. I think that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, to have a 1-year deal and Zach Bond come in and he's playing all-pro level linebacker.
Incredible.
And Nakobe Dean, who everyone wanted to write off because he was injured coming out of the draft. And it's like, oh, is he ever going to figure out? He's been fantastic. And those 2 are like conjoined at the hip. And then on the outside, when you were working here, it was a veteran-laden secondary. There was a lot of, Malcolm Jenkins was here. Ronald Darby was brought in. You have that veteran secondary. Now it's a lot of young. This defense, they're playing well, and they're relatively young. Like, across the board, I genuinely think Zach Bond is one of the older guys on this defense.
Yeah, because even like someone like Darius Slay, who's a veteran, he's not old yet. He's just been in the league for doing it at a high level for a long time.
33, still playing really well.
Right.
You inject that with someone who, again, feels like they've been in the league forever, but he's only in his mid-20s, and CJ Gardner-Johnson, who everyone wants to talk about as a head case, but really over the past couple years has evolved into an elite leader on defense, whether it was with the Eagles that year in Detroit, even though he was injured a lot. It felt like his presence was missing last year for the Eagles, and you saw it on that Detroit defense, and you're feeling it again here. He's such a leader on this defense, and then you bring in Cooper DeJean, you bring in Quinyanamo Bay, who's locking down everybody, and I like to call him the Warden because you're locked up in 4 hours of hell going up against Quinyon Mitchell. You have
Quinyon
Reed
Mitchell's
Blankenship.
outstanding.
He's unbelievable. Reed Blankenship, Keely Ringo has been playing outstanding. Like it's the young guys that have really stood out on this defense, and I feel like that's also not the norm for the Eagles when it comes to defense. They're usually littered with veterans. Obviously, Brandon Graham was still here, unfortunately gets injured, and Fletcher Cox was on
for
this
so
defense
long.
forever.
Yeah.
The list goes on, and now it's a lot of young talent that either Howie Roseman has done a great job of drafting, or they've found those diamonds in the rough in free agency or undrafted free agents, and they've all just kind of clicked under Vic Fangio, of all people.
Yeah, right.
Everyone wanted to say, oh, he's, you see all the statements from Dolphins players last year. They were so thrilled Vic Fangio was gone. They couldn't be happier that they could be themselves.
Yep.
You have Cardinals fans this year talking about, oh, I thought Vic Fangio's defense was supposed to be the greatest thing ever, trying to tout old Jonathan Gannon, who couldn't be locked in for a Super Bowl, but somehow he's going to lead your team to victory. I don't get that concept, but Vic Fangio has been unreal, and I feel like he's just enjoying the ride because he's back home. He got to take in some Phillies baseball when he got signed, and he's just loving life being back home in Philadelphia.
And I think when you look at a lot of the best defenses in the NFL right now, they're kind of built the way you just described the Eagles defense. I know there's not – so Brandon Graham is out. Fletcher Cox is no longer here. So there's not that necessarily like veteran stalwart at the defensive line that's been part of the organization forever. Because I was going to kind of compare, like, the Eagles defense feels to me a little bit like the Chiefs defense, where it's like Chris Jones, dog, and then a lot of young, fast playmakers around him. That's the way to build defense in the NFL now, I think. Like, it's so much of it is about the youth that you can have on affordable contracts that lets you invest in the offensive line and the quarterback and the playmakers. I mean, you know what I mean? These days of, and I think the Steelers in a weird way are an exception to that, because the Steelers do, like, Cam Hayward makes a nice chunk of money. TJ Watt makes a nice chunk of money. Minka Fitzpatrick makes a nice chunk of money. I mean, like, they've got some guys on that defense that are getting paid. Patrick Queen makes a nice chunk of money. Steelers are also able to get away with that this year, though, because they're paying the quarterback room nothing, like literally absolutely nothing. But I think you're absolutely right. I think from a Eagles standpoint, the way that they have evolved the defense over the last couple seasons, you got to be encouraged by, because again, the talent procurement is the biggest thing. It's the biggest thing. And Howie Roseman and company have proved that they can continue to restock those shelves. And when you can do that, give me, if I have to pay one, maybe two defensive studs, fine. Like, if I've got that Chris Jones type guy, fine. But then I'm going to surround him with a bunch of young, hungry playmakers. And I think that is, again, in this new construct of how we talk about the ever-evolving defense, as football at every level becomes easier and easier on the offenses and harder on the defenses. I think it's a great formula that the Eagles are working with. Kyle reminds me of the Lions, too. Like, I know Aiden Hutchinson is out with that nasty leg injury, but it's kind of like Aiden Hutchinson's their guy, and then they got a lot of young, dynamic, fast playmaking pieces around him. Like, that, I think, is a great way, particularly when you're paying the quarterback, like the Eagles are, and like the Chiefs are, and like the Lions are, to build defense in the NFL in 2024.
And I feel like you're seeing that evolution of defense, too, where the teams that are successful this year, you look at, the Eagles, the Steelers, you look at the Chiefs, the Lions, even the Packers and Vikings to a degree. It feels like those defenses were built and constructed to be ahead of the curve of the entire NFL, where it feels like offensive approach is leaning more towards that run game. Look at the successful ground games this year. The Eagles, the Ravens, the Packers, the Texans, even with Joe Mixon. The Lions, people are starting to run the ball. Yeah, the dynamic duo with them, Sonic and Knuckles. Like, everyone's kind of going back to the run game and seeing the value in the running game now. And I feel like we're going to move towards, again, seeing linebackers and defensive ends
no doubt
getting those big paydays rather than the corners that we've seen over the past, decade, cashing in on those big $70, $80 million contracts, because that single high safety defense has been adjusting to investing in linebackers, investing in that edge rush. And you're seeing these successful teams this year who are ahead of the curve, stopping the run really well. And they have these young corners, young safeties being able to go toe-to-toe with a lot of the best wide receivers in the NFL.
Kyle, you and I are both in our 30s. We're in our early 30s, all right? But we're in our 30s nonetheless. So we're no spring chickens anymore. We're not old, but we're no spring chickens anymore. I think one thing that we know about every sport is that it's cyclical, right? Like every sport is cyclical. The one style that dominates for a while, somebody comes up with a way to attack that. Boom, things evolve, and then it comes right back to where you start. To quote Matthew McConaughey in True Detective, time is a flat circle in that regard. And man, I think football is the best example of that, even more so than baseball and hockey and basketball, because football has so many moving parts, so much schematics behind it. Baseball really hasn't changed. I mean, yeah, we put guys on second base and we have the pitch clock and things like that, but there's no 4-3 defense or 3-4 defense. There's no spread offense versus a wishbone or a power eye. You know what I mean? It's one pitcher, it's one batter, it's one pitch at a time. Football, man, is it's so fluid, and there's no perfect defense, because if there was, everybody would run it. There's no perfect offense, because if there was, everybody would run it. And you know, we have this guy on our show all the time. His name's Cody Alexander. He was on the defensive football staff at Baylor for a long time, and now he runs a analytics website called Match Quarters, and he does, like, you know, analyst consulting stuff with different teams. And I remember this offseason, he was talking about this. He was like, guys, like the NFL is coming back to more 12, 13 personnel, like we were talking about earlier. The running back market value has gone up and up and up quietly the last couple off seasons. You're seeing teams going and getting Derrick Henrys, going and getting Saquon Barkley's. A team like Detroit saying, yeah, we're going to use a 12th overall pick on Jahmyr Gibbs or whatever it was, even though we have David Montgomery, because you've got teams like the Buffalo Bills, who for the last 2 years, the Buffalo Bills nickel package was their main package. Like that wasn't having 3 corners on the field for Buffalo wasn't sub-package football. That's what they were running 77% of the time. And so teams looked at that and they said, okay, well, how are we going to beat these guys? Even teams like Kansas City looked at it and said, how are we going to beat these guys? Teams like the Bengals, who have great quarterbacks and great weapons, said, how are we going to beat these guys? We're going to run the football. If they're going to put a light defense out there, we're going to run the football. We're going to control the game. Josh Allen's going to make a mistake, and we're going to be able to win this thing. It's how Cincinnati had success in Buffalo in the postseason. It's how Kansas City had success in Buffalo in the postseason. They're getting away from that a little bit now, and that's part of the reason why I think Buffalo really can win a Super Bowl this year. But if you're going to be if you're going to be heavy, if you're going to stack the box with 7 or 8 dudes every time, I'm going to take shots downfield. I'm going to work the outside of the field. If you're going to only have 6 guys in the box and one of them is going to be a lighter dude in the first place, I'm going to run right in the A-gap at you with some hog mollies. It's cyclical in that regard, and I think we are starting to see, listen, in a lot of ways, the NFL will always remain a passing league. I mean, quarterback play is outstanding. Wide receiver play is outstanding. As you and I just discussed, every year they legislate it to make it easier to throw the football and to get explosive plays and harder to defend them, because that's exciting, because that's what the casual fan wants. But at the same time, man, I think we are really seeing the start of not that teams are going to go back to running the power eye and fullbacks and wishbone triple option service academy style offense, but that there's going to be a real onus on the running back's not a throwaway position anymore. You know, we've got to invest in our offensive line and our run game as much as we invest in our pass rushers and our defensive front. And I think, as you laid it out there too, the teams that have jumped on that already, the Eagles, the Lions, the Ravens, the Bills are doing that. The Bills are throwing the ball less than they ever have too, and running the ball more as well. And those are the teams that have the best records in the NFL right now. Those are the teams that are on the short list of legitimate Super Bowl contenders right now.
And I think for the Steelers, too, from an outsider perspective, it feels like Najee Harris is having one of his better seasons in a Steelers uniform this year.
He is, and he deserves a lot of credit. The Steelers' offensive line has been up and down, Kyle, which you would expect because of the 5 guys on that offensive line. 4 of them are still on their rookie deals. You've got left tackle Dan Moore Jr., who's in his 4th year, to be fair, but is still on his rookie deal. You have got, of course, formerly of the Philadelphia Parish, Isaac Seumalo, who's the lone veteran kind of accomplished guy of the group. Zach Frazier, 2nd-round draft pick rookie at center. Mason McCormick, 5th-round rookie at right guard. And then Broderick Jones, who was a 1st-round pick at tackle a year ago in his 2nd year, albeit playing on the right side when he played the left in college. There's not a lot of, the Steelers went out and got Troy Fautanu, the talented tackle, who I think is going to be really good, but he messed up his knee in Denver week 2, and he's out for the rest of the season. So you got to keep Broderick Jones on the right side, all these moving parts. Frazier and McCormick, the 2 rookies there on the interior, they've had weeks where they've looked great. I think Zach Frazier could be one of the best centers in the league sooner rather than later. I think he could have a Jason Kelsey type career. I really do, where we're talking about him potentially being a gold jacket guy one day, but he's a 2nd-round draft pick rookie. I think Mason McCormick, for a guy who's coming from San Diego State, didn't play crazy high-level football. He was a 5th-round draft pick. I think he's doing really well for a rookie who's been thrust into action since James Daniels tore his Achilles week 3 in Indy against the Colts. But you've got 2 rookies who are not top 20 picks, rookies as well, too, starting. You've got a left tackle and a right tackle who are both on their rookie contracts. A right tackle who has played maybe now 20 games at that position in his life, but that's about it. It has been up and down. They have had weeks where they've been very successful because they do have talent there, but they're trying to get on the same page. They were going back and forth between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, working with different quarterbacks, but a constant in that has been definitely. I know they did going into last week. I haven't checked yet this week because I'll do my stats segment on the show later on in the week, but the Steelers were leading the NFL in rush attempts. Now, their yards per carry, their yards per game, some of those things, middle of the pack. But they're leading the NFL in rush attempts, so there's clearly an onus of that's how they're trying to play, and they want that to set up the play action for Russell Wilson, where he's been historically so good, particularly at hitting those deep shots. But yes, Najee Harris is running hard. Najee Harris is playing well. I do think he's having the best season of his career, which, this is insane, but Kyle, he's about to become the first Steelers player ever to have 1,000 yards or more from scrimmage his first 4 years in the league. No one in Pittsburgh has ever done that before. Not Franco Harris, not Jerome Bettis, none of these wide receivers, none of those guys. He is the only running back in the NFL that has rushed for over 1,000 yards each of the last 3 seasons, and he's going to do it again this year for a 4th straight year. He, to me, is I don't know what his ultimate ceiling is. I don't think he's ever going to be looked at as a top 5 running back in the NFL, but he's played something, Kyle, like 64 games for the Steelers, and he's been dressed and available for all 64 in his 4-year career. He is the definition of the best ability is availability. And I think with Russell Wilson and what they've been able to do in the pass game, with the offensive line being up and down, but being more talented than they were in the past, Najee has been playing well. He has. I still think there's an extra step, an extra gear that him and the run game can get to. And to be fair to him, like I was explaining, that probably starts more with the offensive line than it does with him. But yes, without a doubt, the Steelers did not pick up his 5th-year option, so he'll be a free agent at the end of this year. And I don't think he's going to get a Saquon or a Derrick Henry type contract, but I think somebody will pay him to come there and be their feature back.
Yeah, and you bring up the offensive line too.
If it's not the Steelers.
Right. And you bring up the O-line, and I just look at what the Eagles' defensive line has brought this year too, and the number of times, and I feel like it's across the league too, holding's not getting called nearly as much on the defensive side of things. A lot of offensive holding is being looked away, defensive holding's being looked away, but we're getting a lot more defensive holding, I think, than we have in years past. And it feels like Jalen Carter has been the public enemy number 1 to being held and it not being called. How do you see the game wreckers on this Eagles D-line matching up against that O-line, whether it's Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, one of my personal favorites, Milton Williams, Nolan Smith has had a great run over the past couple months here. The front has really stepped up a lot for the Eagles.
Scary. I mean, if you just had Carter and Davis, it'd be scary, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this to me is I think the most substantial, the most significant test for the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line this season. And there's been some solid ones already. Look, they've seen Myles Garrett twice already, and I might be the only person in Pittsburgh that admits this publicly. He's sick. He's ridiculous. All right. I don't care. We could argue back and forth about him and TJ Watt all day, whatever, fine. But if you tell me you think Myles Garrett stinks, I just don't believe you. He's unreal. They did have to go up against Dexter Lawrence, right, when they played the Giants, who I think is one of the best interior offensive linemen going. The Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals, who leads the league in sacks right now. Like they've gone up against some decent challenges in that regard. But this, I think, particularly from the interior defensive line, is a different beast. And I mentioned Zach Frazier and Mason McCormick and those guys, and particularly, listen, I'm high on McCormick, but I've got very great expectations for Zach Frazier. He obviously went to WVU, so I watched him play for 4 years in Morgantown before he went to the Steelers, and the Steelers needed a center. There were 3 in last year's draft class that everybody really talked about: Graham Barton, Jackson Powers-Johnson, and Zach Frazier. And I was hell-bent on Zach Frazier for the Steelers, and it ended up happening, and they didn't have to trade or anything like that. He fell into their laps in the second round, and he is the highest graded rookie offensive lineman, by a lot of these different websites. I think like ESPN had him as like the 4th best rookie in football just the other day, behind a lot of quarterbacks and wide receivers. But he was out when the Steelers played the Giants and Dexter Lawrence. He had his like a high ankle sprain and missed 2 games against the Giants and the Jets, I believe it was. And so since he's been back, they haven't seen a test like this from the interior. Again, guys like Myles Garrett, guys like Trey Hendrickson, great, outstanding football players, but they play on the edge. This is different to me. This is almost like a final exam of sorts. And I know the Steelers still have 3 games to play plus playoffs after this. But this feels like Zach Frazier walking into the classroom to take a final in a kind of way. You know what I mean? Hey, son, you've had a really good rookie season. You have done a great job against some good defensive tackles in this league. But here you go. Like, here's the final test. Here's probably, maybe not the best singular defensive tackle in the league, but I think the best interior that any NFL team has in the National Football League. Good luck. Go get him. And by the way, you're going to see Chris Jones here like 10 days later. So you better be, maybe that's the final exam, or maybe it's a 2-part final exam, but it is a huge test for a pair of rookies in McCormick and Frazier that have had encouraging starts to their NFL careers. But this is going to be a different beast than what they've seen and what they've handled so far.
Which to me makes the ultimate matchup that I'm going to be interested in watching from that perspective is, with George Pickens out, how Russell Wilson dictates the passing game and how involved a Pat Freiermuth gets against these Eagles linebackers, and how involved Russell Wilson is getting the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible, and how many times he's going to be dumping it off to Pat Freiermuth, who I think is a wildly talented athlete. He plays that possession receiver tight end position extremely well, and I think he doesn't get talked about nearly enough as he should. That to me is going to be interesting. Zach Bond against Pat Freiermuth, Nakobe Dean against Pat Freiermuth, and the Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Morrow, Jomo, and Jordan Davis kind of wrecking the middle of that Steelers defensive or offensive line, and seeing how Russell Wilson reacts to that.
It's another huge game within the game, and I think if the Steelers win Sunday in Philadelphia, I think Pat Freiermuth having a good game has to be a big part of that storyline. Maybe not the headline, but it has to be there in one of the first paragraphs or 2, right? Like the type of Sunday that he had. Scored this past Sunday against Cleveland, scored the Sunday before against Cincinnati, scored out of the bye week, had a touchdown against Washington. So I think like 3 touchdowns in the last 5 games, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but something there. He has been really getting more targets, getting more receptions, being a bigger focal point of this offense, as has Darnell Washington, the Steelers' other tight end, who's a different body type than Freiermuth, but he is still a talented receiver as well, too. He's he's like 6'7", 300 pounds, which is massive for a tight end. But
he can Mekhi Becton playing tight end.
He can move and catch much better than you would expect for someone his size. He's got definitely one, maybe 2 touchdowns on the season. I'm trying to remember now, but had a big play against the Browns. They like to do the rollout stuff. When they get the run game going and Najee's humming, they'll bootleg Russell Wilson around and get Darnell to leak out, and they get him in space with like a poor 5'10" defensive back, and here comes this 6'7", 300-pound behemoth running right at you. Especially in what seems a game that George Pickens is not going to play. They are going to have to get something out of those tight ends. I think Mike Williams has more to give to this offense. I think Calvin Austin is a nice kind of accessory gadget type piece, really fast, really twitchy that you can do a lot with. Van Jefferson belongs on an NFL roster. But make no mistake about it. I mean, they don't have that dynamic threat that you really think can take a game over without George Pickens. But Pat Freiermuth and that tight end room are probably the next closest thing they have to getting to that. They can get some matchup nightmares. If they can run the ball successfully, they can play off of that play action over the middle of the field. Russell Wilson also 3 runs, all 4 first downs last week as well, too. Something that we hadn't seen very much from Russ. Like, he even had an RPO in there, like Justin Fields style. You know, if you're going to be trying to do all those different things, I think that's kind of the formula. But yeah, Pat Freiermuth has to be a big part of that equation, the tight end position as well, too. They have to keep the Eagles defense on their toes in that regard, because if they become too predictable, if they get into too many obvious passing situations, I think the offense for the Steelers could be in for a long evening at 4:30.
Yeah, that's what fascinates me too, is that the Eagles this year defensively have given up 14 passing touchdowns all year. So they've been really good at stopping the passing touchdown, as opposed to last year as well, which everyone thinks they're the same team. Guess what, guys? They're not. So that's also fascinating to me, is, you know, your dynamic number one option receiver is out. It kind of shifts the passing game a little bit. And I think Pat Freiermuth is your best receiving option when Pickens is out from an outsider perspective. So to see how the tight end matchup is going to play out in this game is going to be really interesting.
It is, and particularly against those talented linebackers that you've mentioned, that we talked about. Like, that to me is, listen, there's a lot of questions with the Steelers in the offense, but like the wide receiver group and Russell Wilson for this week, I think is kind of on the back burner for me. Like, I think Russ will do fine. I think the wide receivers will do fine. But if you want to get good, if you want to get great, it's going to have to be Najee. It's going to have to be Pat Freiermuth. It's going to have to start in the trenches there. And they've been able to do that at times this season, albeit against some much less talented defenses, much less talented fronts than they'll face this Sunday in Philadelphia.
And I think if the Steelers defense does their job and keeps the Eagles in long field goal range, you might force them into a punt right now, because Jake Elliott's 0 for 5 kicking field goals of 50-plus yards this season.
Which is wild. Like, him and Justin Tucker and some of these McPherson and Cincinnati just struggling this year. That is the one good thing that the Steelers have going for him, is you get Chris Boswell like inside of 60 yards and he's automatic. He's been money. He's missed 2 field goals all year and one of them was blocked. I mean, it's been insane. So yeah, you know what too, like, special teams a big part in this one. Particularly the kicking game as it can be. So there's a lot of minutia in this one, Kyle, as you would expect when you've got a 10-3 first place team against an 11-2 first place team. These are 2 good football teams, and quite often when that's the case, it comes down to those fine details of who's going to win.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I know before we started recording, you said you had some questions for me too, so I'm all ears.
I wanted to ask you kind of, we kicked it around, just the volatile thing that I would like, the sense of, for me, it's been like, man, it really feels like this thing's about to blow up in Philadelphia, and Sirianni's getting hot in the media, and Brandon Graham's talking about his teammates on WIP. But yeah, that was all I wanted to talk to you about. Was that, like, all year, it's like all year it's felt like the Eagles have been a balloon, and I'm just waiting for the needle to come and prick and for that thing to pop like it did last year. But I think it's been the opposite. Every time I think, okay, this might be it for Philly, they come out and I've been totally wrong. I've totally missed the whole pulse of that thing.
And to me, the difference too, looking at last year, and I've said this a bunch on the show, and I've told people this, last year the Eagles were winning games by the skin of their teeth. It was, winning with a walk-off field goal or winning in overtime by a touchdown, winning
Kinda
by
like the Chiefs are doing right now.
Exactly. and just waiting for that one final, play to happen. This year, the difference to me is the Eagles are winning games, but they're winning in a multitude of ways. You've seen them blow out teams like the Bengals and the Rams. You've seen games where the box score doesn't necessarily dictate the flow of the game. I look at that Jaguars game in particular where they ruled out a fumble and the Jaguars run it back for a touchdown on Saquon, and you take that off the board and you take a couple penalties that should have been called on the board. The Eagles blow out the Jaguars, and it's a totally different story. Who knows if Doug Peterson still has his job at this point?
Poor Doug.
You look at, the Washington game, it looks closer than it was because they score a garbage time touchdown with, 40 seconds left. Same thing with the Ravens. Like, majority of that second half, it was a 24-12 ball game, and you dominated a team that everyone was looking at as a Super Bowl favorite. And they found ways to win that last year there was no creativity to the winning. It was like, we have to win by the skin of our teeth or we're not winning. This year, they found so many different ways to win. They go to a different hemisphere and win a football game, and everyone forgets, week one, they played in Brazil and beat a 9-4 Packers team right now, and one of those 4 losses they have is to this Eagles team, and people seem to forget that in the discussion, too, that the Eagles beat a really good football team week one in a different country, in a different hemisphere, in a different time zone, but it doesn't fit the narrative. So they throw that out the window. And I feel like a lot of people just use the local radio stations as like the hive mind of their thinking. It's like Stranger Things. They've got Vecna controlling everything that they're trying to say, and whatever comes out over those airwaves, from 7 a.m. all the way through the night, that's the thought process of what Philly fans think of the team when it's the like I mentioned earlier, Butch from Manayunk, he's controlling the show. We've turned the callers into the content creators.
Yeah, and that's always a dangerous game to play. I will say, though, again, like very similar in Pittsburgh. I mean, very similar in Pittsburgh. It's like it's halfway through the first quarter and the Browns are beating the Steelers 7-3, and I'm getting tweets from people. Here we go again. Mike Tomlin game. Here we go. The defense is overpaid. The defense sucks. Jameis Winston just threw a touchdown. Like, he didn't throw for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Broncos, like another 8-5 good team, like 6 days prior. It's the blessing and the curse of football, though. It is our most passionate, favorite sport in this country, and we get the least amount of it of any of the big sports. I mean, we get 17 regular season games, and that's it. For, all this build-up. We spend so much time on the draft and the combine and free agency and OTAs and mini camps. So I get it. But maybe so Kyle's saying Pittsburgh, take a deep breath. You got a great head coach. You're in a good spot. I'm saying Philadelphia, you're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Calm down.
Relax.
I would do the Aaron Rodgers thing, but RELAX, but I don't want to do the Aaron Rodgers thing.
Yeah. I don't need a Netflix documentary about myself just yet.
No, I don't. What about me going and doing drugs in the woods? It's called a Grateful Dead concert, all right? I don't need a documentary about it.
You don't need the woods for that either.
Yeah, exactly.
Sell out arenas. and that's the thing for me, too, with this team is, like, they're finding ways to win, and at the end of the day, are the stats flashy? Not necessarily. Is it very much a run-first and defensive-minded team? Absolutely. But you look at what happened this past week, Josh Allen breaks an NFL record, first player ever to have 3 rushing touchdowns and 3 passing touchdowns in a game. Team didn't win. Yeah. Joe Burrow throws for 300 some odd yards every single week. The Bengals are 5-8.
Joe Burrow is putting up numbers that most
having an MVP season if the Bengals are above 500.
I don't know if you saw that graphic that was going around, but it was like the other quarterbacks that have done what Joe Burrow has done to this point in the season. And it's like Tom Brady and Randy Moss and the 16-0 New England Patriots. It's like Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams and a 14-2 Packers team. And then Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison Jr. or Marvin Harrison Sr. on like a 13-3 Colts team. And then there's like the 4-8 Bengals. It's insane. You're right. But again, though, look at the teams that truly fancy themselves Super Bowl contenders right now. They're not sexy. Detroit isn't sexy. Kansas City isn't sexy. Buffalo isn't sexy. Sometimes it's right to zig when everyone else is zagging. And I think some of these teams have, I think the Steelers are trying to get there, not quite to the level of those other four that I just mentioned. They might be the next one closest. But yeah, again, from afar, the formula that the Lions have, the formula that the Eagles have, the formula that obviously the Chiefs, but I think that Buffalo has more now than they have the last couple years. That's the formula that wins in January. Make no mistake about it. You ain't going to go out there and throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in January in a playoff game. It's just not happening.
Not everybody's Nick Foles and Tom Brady in Super Bowl 52.
Exactly. Right now in the Super Bowl, it's a little different because you're going to be in a dome or some nice weather or something like that. But the Buffalo Bills are built to win now. The Philadelphia Eagles are built to win now. The Lions are built to win now. And that's what you want. I don't need a Miami Dolphins team that's built to win games in September and October when it's 90 degrees out. Cool. Thanks. Hard pass. I really think there is a direct reason why the teams that are playing good defense and running the football are the ones that are Super Bowl contenders right now. I think some of these teams have zigged while others are zagging, and they're ahead of the curve for it. I really do believe that.
And I think at the end of the day, if you're a fan, you'd much rather have your quarterback throwing for anywhere from 150 to 225 yards a game, and at the end of the year, you got a Lombardi trophy in your trophy case, than going out every week, putting up 400 plus yards. Receivers are catching touchdowns left and right, and you're a first round knockout.
No doubt. And I mean, we've seen that a little bit from the Josh Allen Bills over the last couple of years, right? We've seen that a little bit from the Baltimore Ravens. I think there's a reason why both of those teams in particular had a substantial philosophical change of how they wanted to operate their offense this year. And again, sometimes it can be hard to see that forest through the trees in September and October. But I think now when you start to get close to Christmas, when you get to that final 4 games of the season and we're going to blink and it's going to be, the second week in January and playoffs are going to be starting, that's the type of team that you want to have, man. Like that's it. And I do think, I think Philadelphia has that formula. Maybe some of that volatility needs cranked down just a half notch. All right. Little angst, little edge can be good. All right. Those things could be good too. Maybe just a little half notch crank down. But I do. Yeah. From afar, the Eagles might be the best team the Steelers play this year. It'll be them or Kansas City in the regular season. And I'm coming off of 4 straight division games here for the Steelers that they're coming off of. So they've had 4 straight weeks of kind of like, here's a division opponent that you have to get up for. Going to Baltimore after this, that Kansas City game loom. Like, I'm very interested to see how the Steelers perform and how they respond in a place where they have performed and responded very poorly since 1965.
And we'll get a chance to see if anybody even gets to watch that Steelers or Chiefs game, because it is on Netflix, and who knows what those servers are going to be.
Hopefully, it won't be like the Mike Tyson fight against whichever one of that Paul Jabroni he fought. Yeah, that's sorry excuse for a fight. Oh, goodness gracious. I think I'd rather go kiss John Tortorella on the mouth than watch those two try and box.
Hey, is it fun that the Flyers and the Penguins might have that rivalry building back up again? The Flyers are back on the radar, man.
They are, and the Penguins, after a disaster start to the season, they've won like 5 of their last 6 games now, so they're kind of getting back into it. Sullivan and Tortorella go way back. You guys have the young, flashy superstar now, where we've got more of the old grizzled vets. It's kind of flipped in that regard. I hope so. Flyers Penguins hasn't really felt that volatile, serious since like 2018 when they last played. Volatile since they last played in the playoffs.
Let's take some of that Eagles volatility and put it in the Flyers and the Penguins every year.
Yeah, and we don't want to do it on a baseball diamond because we got an owner who doesn't give a rip. All right, and you guys are pretty stinking good. But yeah, come on, yeah, let's get that hockey Yanks back. Yeah,
it's good, it's fun. I like
just real quick. You'll like this before you. Yeah, I know you got some quick hitters for me.
Yeah.
We did a Today on the Show. So my day job, right? I produce our morning show, which is Craig Wolfley and Max Starks, 2 former Steelers offensive linemen, and then I host in the afternoons with Arthur Moats, the former Steelers linebacker. this morning we were doing these different Philly or Pittsburgh, right? So like Sheetz Wawa, those things that people always do. Heinz versus Tasty Cakes. I came up with the polio vaccination versus the Declaration of Independence, which I thought was two pretty substantial moments in our country's history. The Declaration of Independence, all right, and the polio vaccination, which was discovered in Pittsburgh.
You're welcome, America.
You're welcome, America, for Pennsylvania. But one of the ones they asked me was cheesesteaks or Permanis. And I was like, guys, you're going to hate me, but I got to be honest, it's cheesesteaks without a doubt. All right. In fact, I've already got my spots lined up for Saturday when I get to Philadelphia.
Where are we going, baby? Where are we hitting?
We're going to go Woodrow's for an early dinner. Okay. So I'm going to get in. I'm going to go to Woodrow's for an early dinner. And then I'm going to ballyhoo and consume some beverages and all those different things. And then I don't know, I might close it down with Angelo's, maybe I'm thinking, but it's going to be Saturday's going to be a 2 cheesesteak kind of day for your boy. But Woodrow's I know everyone in Philly has their spot, and I've got a lot of spots that I like. There's some great ones, but I've always been a sucker for Woodrow's on South Street. So I think that'll be my first stop.
Yeah, Angelo's, I had it for the first time this year, and it was dynamic. And hey, Jim's is back open.
Jim's is back. And that's the thing, too, like, staying in the center city area, so I don't really want to have to venture too far away. I know there's a lot of great suburban cheesesteak spots as well, too. I lived in Manayunk for a couple years. I was at D'Alessandro's all the time. Mama's is a great spot. But yeah, I something a little closer. And so, yeah, so I don't know, maybe Jim's. You know what? I do have some members of the Steelers contingent who want to roll with me, to get the cheesesteak experience. They want to do the Philly taco style, right? And really, tourist it up. So I don't know, but I will tell you this: I'll be getting Woodrow's at some point. That's a guarantee.
It's a slam dunk spot. You can't deny it.
And like every NFL team provides a post game meal for the visitors that like we can grab when we're getting on the bus to go to the airplane type thing, and it's always Pat's. Well, at least in my 2 experiences in Philadelphia, it has been Pat's. So. I might have 3 cheesesteaks in like a 12-hour span here, baby. We're gonna be living. We're gonna be living.
Incredible. I have a fun question we always do when you're on the show. And if you don't know, if this is your first time listening with Wes on the show, he's a huge Star Wars fan. Big Grateful Dead guy.
WVU, Grateful Dead, Star Wars, about covers it.
And the Stillers, That's his grab bag right there. And, new Star Wars show is out, the old Skeleton Crew. So I figured I'd let you draw from your grab bag of personality traits and build your Skeleton Crew from WVU, from the Grateful Dead, who you want riding through outer space with you.
That's a hilarious question, actually. What's the number again? Is it 5?
I think it's 4, and then they have like a droid robot rolling with them.
Okay, so let's do this then.
And Jude Law, obviously, is
leading the way. You said Grateful Dead and WVU. Okay.
Grateful Dead, WVU. You can pull from Star Wars, the Steelers.
I like this. So I'll try and spread it out a little bit. I mean, first round draft pick, if you're going to space, has to be Jerry Garcia, right? 100%. I mean, that's got to be the first pick. They called him Captain Trips. Like, that was Jerry Garcia's nickname, and not because he went to space, because he did a lot of trips. You gotta have that guy. You just absolutely. The music's gonna be playing. You're not gonna have to worry about being sober while you're kind of sitting around there. Fantastic.
He's probably turning the Sphere in Vegas into your ship.
Exactly right. Like, speaking of the whole like brain hive, mind hive, like Stranger Things thing. I do think there is something to the Sphere where. Don't look now, but your boy just booked to go in May for the second time. Last year, my wife got it for me as a Christmas gift. I went with my cousin. This year, I'm going to take my wife. So we're gonna do a little parents, couple days away in Vegas. So first pick, Jerry Garcia. Second pick, Owen Schmidt, the runaway beer truck. Okay, so you can clearly see I'm going with a theme here. The first guy that I picked, his nickname was Captain Trips. The second guy that I picked, his nickname was the runaway beer truck. Okay, so we're not going to have a shortage of things to imbibe upon on this journey, all right? We're going to enjoy ourselves. Owen Schmidt, former Eagle, WVU football legend, of course, notorious for ripping his head open, banging his head off his helmet, and for having one of the coolest calls in Fiesta Bowl history when he had that 65-yard touchdown run against Oklahoma and was dubbed the runaway beer truck. That's pick number 2. Now, see, after this starts to get a little more difficult, I think we might need some stability. We need some power. We need some stability. So this might be where I would go with like a TJ Watt or a Cam Hayward at this point, because both of those guys keep their wits about them. Both of those guys, they're smart, they're cerebral, but they've got some muscles that we could use as well too. So I think although Zach Frazier would be another fun one to have just from the WVU angle, and he was a 4-time state champion wrestler in high school. 149-2 was his wrestling record when he was in high school. I'm going to change my answer. Jerry Garcia, Owen Schmidt, Zach Frazier. Ooh. I feel like we need a little, we need something different here. We need a little bit of a different speed, like this might be where I want to nab somebody from the Star Wars universe.
Don't bring the spice.
This would be a good spot to, I don't know, maybe throw in an Ahsoka or somebody like that here. Again, someone who's got the brawn, but someone who can clearly be brain, because we're going to need brains in this operation. Right. So that's, I do, yeah. Oh, Ahsoka would be a good answer here. Han Solo would be a good answer here. How about this? Indiana Jones, final answer.
I love it. That's the wild card we're looking.
Indeed.
Love that. Love that.
We'll go Han Solo's twin brother from a different universe.
From the same studio.
Same character, different pew. Shout out to Harrison Ford, though. That's my final answer. Jerry Garcia, Owen Schmidt, Zach Frazier, Indiana Jones.
What a crew. Led by Wes Uhler.
And I want Kyle tagging along as well, too.
Hey, let's go for a ride, baby. And I feel like Owen Schmidt fits that vibe of, I don't know if you've watched the show yet or not, but Neil, the little elephant character guy.
I'm finishing the Penguin right now. I'm going to have the Penguin done, and then then it's
we'll have some chats about the Penguin
then it's skeleton time, because it's tough for me this time of year because Steelers, I do the WVU stuff as well. Like, I've got 2 young daughters now, but believe me, it is skeleton crew is it's next week. I think I'll probably be there.
Owen Schmidt reminds me of Neil.
Okay, I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna write
fun,
that.
Bubbly personality.
I got my little trusty notebook here. I'm gonna write Owen equals Neil. I'm going to revisit that because I think Owen, I know Owen has watched Andor and Mando and those, so like he might be into this as well too. I'll have to follow up with him. This is good. I like this. And we got a Philadelphia connection in there too,
Exactly.
It's hilarious to me. Like, all my in-laws, my wife's side of the family that love the Eagles and everything and are from the area. When they found out 2 years ago that I was doing a show with Owen Schmidt, and that like he's been to a few WVU games with me, like comes to our tail, like we've become buddies over the last 2 years when we started doing the show together. They lose it all the time. They're like, can we still got a jersey? Can we get an autograph? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we come to one of your tailgates? And I'm like, he is the greatest dude ever. Like, everything that you see from the persona of Owen Schmidt and when he was in Philadelphia and banging face masks off of his head, like, that's the same guy that he is. Nice as could be, fun as could be. And he still has mad love for Philadelphia as well, too. Him and Jason Kelsey are really good friends. He was actually out there last year when they did the Amazon premiere of Kelsey.
Oh, that's sick.
Like Kelsey invited Owen, and he flew out. He got to see a lot of his old Eagles teammates. He loves Andy Reid. He loves so many of the connections and everything that he made there. So Owen's always got good things to say about Philadelphia as well, too. So I'm sure Eagles fans will love hearing that from a former Eagle.
That's how I feel about Isaiah Pacheco, too, because he's from my hometown, and everyone's like, oh, what's Isaiah like? What you see from Isaiah in media everywhere, that's who he's been since I've known him as a junior in high school.
And that's all you can ask for, right? Like, that's all you want from people is just, no matter what, just stay the same person. And, I think Philadelphia, people from Philly and people from Pittsburgh do a good job of that. We ain't these New Yorkers or these Chicago or Southern California people that just change on a whim, all right?
Yeah, we don't go out there burning jerseys when a guy flips and goes cross town.
Yeah. Oh, Juan Soto. Oh, my God. You chase the money just like every person that we've offered a contract to for the last 30 years. How could you? No, Alex Rodriguez didn't come here because of the money. No, Giancarlo Stanton didn't come here because of the money. They came here because they want to play for the pinstripe.
CC Sabathia and Mark Teixeira totally signed here because they wanted to put the Yankee pinstripes
right?
on.
Yeah, right. Like they just wanted to play for the Yankees. They didn't care about the
Always.
Although I will say, I mean, you'd probably rather see the Yankees have success than the Mets at least.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was rooting wholeheartedly for the Yankees to stop being a broke boy organization and open up
real
the wallet.
quick, I do have a question for you before we go. All right. You got to, and then I'll give you mine. Your top 3 most hated teams in sports.
Oh, it has fluctuated over the years for a number of reasons. No particular order. It is the Mets.
Okay.
It is the Boston Bruins.
Okay.
And pulling
up
the
answer
rear,
a lot, by the way, too,
is probably the Braves.
Ooh, Mets, Bruins, Braves.
Yeah.
Good answers. I thought for sure the Cowboys would be in there, but good answers. Mine would be Pitt. Pitt would be number 1. Probably Flyers 2. Ravens 3. I respect the Baltimore Ravens, but I hate them. It's kind of a weird dynamic. Those are good. The Bruins are a good answer. Like if I did a top 5, the Bruins might be in that top 5. They are a real good answer. I hate them.
I hate them.
Whether they're good, whether they're bad, whatever.
I root for their downfall always.
You and me, they've won 1 Stanley Cup since Bobby Orr's black and white picture of him flying through the air, and they act like they're God's gift to hockey. Get out of here.
Get them out of here.
Get out of here. I mean, geez, Louise. Yeah, no, that's really good by you. I knew the Mets would be on there.
Yeah,
I thought
the Mets hate got reinvigorated this year a lot. It's been heavy Braves.
If the Pens and Flyers went back and forth like playing in the playoffs again, they'd probably be jumping up the list. Yeah.
Yeah. The Mets hate really evolved this year, and they are the most insufferable team and fan base.
I saw it from afar, partner. I sure did. Grimace, I tell you what, that little purple bastard.
I wanted him to explode like his Grimace shake trend on TikTok.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. No, that's good. I like that. Those are 3 good answers.
Yeah.
3 good answers.
Wes, let everybody know where they can follow you on the old social medias and check out everything you're doing with the Stillers, with West Virginia, and everything in between.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate that. So on Twitter at Wesley Uhler, that's where you can find me. I host the Steelers Blitz, like I was saying, at noon. We'll be doing plenty of Eagles talk and conversation this week as the week goes along. I also, if you are, in the off chance, listen, I know there's plenty of WVU fans in the Philly and New Jersey area. If you are somebody who is a tortured mountaineer soul like me, I host the In the Gun podcast with Owen Schmidt and Jed Drenning, who's a former WVU quarterback and current sideline reporter. So yeah, I'll be in Philly Sunday. I do the halftime reports and the post game recap for the Steelers broadcast, as well as being the broadcast engineer. So I wear like 12 different hats on game days, but one of those hats will be going to give Merrill Reese and Ike Reese, my 2 favorite Reeses other than Reese's peanut butter cups, some grief whenever I see them. Ricky Ricardo, Jack Fritz, who else am I looking forward to seeing? Mike Angelina, all those guys. Always love getting back to listen, I married my wife and moved to Philadelphia out of college. So that was a key moment, key years in my life. A lot of memories, a lot of friendships like Kyle's that I cherish. And so always excited to get back there, particularly when it's a 5-star match. It's not 2 years ago, all right, when it was the Kenny lame Duck Steelers rolling into Philly. This is a 5-star matchup. And between what I think are probably 2 of the best 3 or 4 sports cities in the country, this is what Eagles and Steelers fans deserve on Sunday.
It's going to be a blast. It's always fun having you on the show, man, and looking forward to chatting about the Penguin and obviously what's going down on Sunday at the Link.
My man, keep up the good work. Always good getting back with you, Kyle.
Shout out to the boy Wes. And guess what, guys? We know this episode's going to be a long one, but here's the thing. It's our show. We don't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck. A lot to talk about this week, so that's what happens. You get a loaded episode. Harrison, let's shift to the city of Dallas, where the winter meetings are going on, and talk a little Phillies baseball. Because a lot has been swirling around the world of Major League Baseball over the past, I don't know, 72 hours per se. It's it's brought to you by Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. From sunglasses to blue light glasses to prescription lenses, Tomahawk Shades has you covered to make sure you are looking your best when you're out on the town, when you're at home, for a fraction of the price of the big eyewear companies. I just shopped their sale going on right now and got 4 pairs of sunglasses for $66. It's an absolute steal. Tomahawk Shades is doing everyone a service by giving them quality eyewear for a fraction of the price of the big eyewear companies. There's no need for you to spend $800 on sunglasses, on blue light glasses. Protect your eyes. Go to tomahawkshades.com or download the Tomahawk Shades app. Shop their collections. Get your sunglasses, your blue light glasses. Unfortunately, they don't have gloves to protect your hand there from your cat, Harrison.
Yeah.
But they can protect your eyes. Tomahawkshades.com. Use code USP at checkout to get 25% off your next purchase with Tomahawk Shades in the Tomahawk Shades app or at tomahawkshades.com. That's code USP for 25% off from our friends at Tomahawk Shades. The Rule 5 draft happened today. The Phillies lost their minor league player of the year, who went to the Twins. But a lot of people that I was seeing their comments on it, his name's Eberson Castellano, oddly enough.
Just add an S and he would have been stuck in Philadelphia forever.
He a lot of people project him to be a reliever long term. He's been a starter at Jersey Shore, but a lot of people don't know if he's going to have the longevity to last in the league just because of the way he throws and his size and everything. I don't know. I just I'm fine with it. I think a lot of the low end minor league players, it's one of those things that you take a gamble by not protecting them from the Rule 5 draft. The Phillies also drafted Mike Vasel from the Mets system in the Rule 5 draft and then traded him to the Tampa Bay Rays for cash considerations. So congratulations to cash considerations joining the Phillies. Big time stuff.
Considerations always wins.
The real big rumor with the Phils, Rob Thompson and Scott Boras both shut down any thought of Alec Boehm being traded. Scott Boras said the only conversations we've had with the Phillies is Alec Boehm being the starting third baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies. So the people that are up in arms about this, because the more shit that has come out from these winter meetings feel absolutely pure chaos.
From everything with Juan Soto to everything going on now, just nothing but chaos.
The amount of people who I thought knew ball that are showcasing that they don't know as much ball as I thought. Why on earth, after this player announced the teams he would come to, one of them being the Phillies, to waive his no trade clause, he listed the Dodgers, the Padres, the Angels, the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves. I'm sorry, but Nolan Arenado stinks, guys. He's cooked. He's cooked. Why on earth do people think that Nolan Arenado at age 33 and the drop-off and the decline he has been on is an upgrade over Alec Boehm? Have we not seen when the Phillies have played the Cardinals over the last couple seasons, the way Nolan Arenado just completely forgets how to field? The dude is cooked. He was a Coors Field merchant. I want no piece of Nolan Arenado on this team. Like that moves the needle this way for me and not this way in the trajectory you need it. What are we talking about? Nolan Arenado.
It's insane to me. Like this man is a player whose last good season was what, like 3 years ago? 4 years ago? And meanwhile, we got a player coming into his prime. So someone who hasn't even hit his full stride yet. To trade Boehm for Arenado would be mind-boggling.
Disastrous.
disastrous. That's a great word for it. It would be it'd be a sign of the apocalypse in Philadelphia.
And now the big rumor.
Oh boy,
is Kyle Tucker,
I saw that. Yeah.
the Astros right fielder.
Do we
Now,
really want an Astro?
Now, Kyle Tucker, I wanted to punch him in the face during the 2022 World Series, like so badly
Oh
for
yeah.
what he said about the series in general. I will not argue he's a damn good baseball player and would be fucking awesome in this Phillies lineup.
Yeah.
But what you would have to give up to get Kyle Tucker, and then the prospect of thinking about said players in Astros uniforms makes my skin crawl. And I just don't know if he's worth it. Plus, the other teams that are rumored to be in on Kyle Tucker, I genuinely think have better trade packages, being the Cubs, and I forget who the other team was, but they have a lot of major league ready talent because that's what the Astros want. And people have been throwing Alec Boehm into those conversations, throwing in Nick Castellanos in those conversations, throwing Ranger Suarez in those conversations. And I'm just like, nah, Chief, nah.
No.
Like,
Ranger
it sounds good on
Suarez-
paper to have Kyle Tucker here, but I just there's other options where you would just have to spend money.
Yeah.
And I'd rather do that. John Middleton has said that it's a blank checkbook this offseason. Go get Brian Dela Cruz for the bench. Go get Teoscar Hernandez. Make him want to come here. Like go and like here's my thing too. The Phillies miss out on Crochet today. He gets traded to the Red Sox.
Yep.
And people are up in arms about that. And it's like, look at the package that the Red Sox dealt to the White Sox to get Crochet. That would be the equivalent of Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, and then some to go and get him, which Crossing Broad apparently is reporting less than an hour ago. Luke Arcanini, I apologize, Luke, for not knowing how to pronounce your last name correctly. Luke is saying that an article from Matt Gelb states that the Phillies were willing to send Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford to the White Sox in exchange for Crochet, which would have been a mistake in my opinion, but not Andrew Painter. Yeah, the Phillies were smart to not do that deal. Like, very smart. Now, if the Phillies were so interested in Crochet, and apparently they were interested at the trade deadline last season, if you are so pressed about starting pitching, why would the Phillies not just get in the Corbin Burns sweepstakes? That's what's interesting to me, is that Corbin Burns is available for just money alone. And he's a damn good pitcher. He stole the Cy Young from Zach Wheeler in 2021. Why would you not just go and sign that guy and add him to this rotation if you're so pressed about acquiring another starting pitcher? Because I genuinely think Corbin Burns is a damn good starting pitcher. Like, that dude is filthy. And he's 30 years old. He's in his prime. Why would you not go all in to try to get him if you're so pressed about starting pitching and adding to your rotation?
It doesn't make sense. I think they're just trying to do some kind of big splashy move and get their big signing that way. But if the free agent's on the table, you go out and you get him, especially when you can make it a 4-ace lineup in that sense.
And like, I'm still holding out hope that Jeff Hoffman is back. He posted on his Instagram story today a picture of him pitching at the All-Star game with an hourglass emoji. So
that's something.
I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it's a choice to post the All-Star game jersey picture rather than a regular Phillies uniform, but I might just be reading too much into that. But Corbin Burns went 15-9 last year with the Orioles with a sub-3 ERA, 181 strikeouts, and a 1.1 whip. Like, if you want to go get a pitcher, go sign Corbin Burns. Add Corbin Burns to a rotation of Wheeler, Nola, Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, and then you have Andrew Painter in the mix, but he's obviously going to be on an innings limit count because of the Tommy John surgery, and you want to ease him into his first major league season. Go get Corbin Burns.
Yeah. He's MLB ready. He's a dog. And then you can help him develop your young prospects. Like, he's a good guy to teach these young players how to pitch at the MLB level.
He's also a guy that, like, he's in the Wheeler and Nola age range. He's 30
Yeah.
years old, and he's only played in small markets. He started with the Brewers, pitched for the Orioles last year, and I feel like he's a big game pitcher.
He
Corbin Burns
is.
is a guy that, like, you can rely on in the playoffs. You can give him the ball when you need him to. And can you imagine just a team coming into a series at Citizens Bank Park next year and they have to line their roster up to go back to back to back, or if it's a 4-game series, against Wheeler, Nola, Burns, Sanchez?
Nasty.
Good luck.
I would just throw in the towel at that point and be like, you know what? I really don't want to deal with these guys.
And then on the wraparound, you're going Sanchez, Suarez / Painter, Wheeler.
Yeah.
Like, that's a complete rotation to me. They add Jordan Romano earlier this week in the bullpen, which I like that move. It's a risk-free 1-year deal type of move. He's closed games. I like what he said in his press conference. You still got to add to the bullpen. It would be a mistake to not continue adding to the bullpen this offseason. And you got to build out a bench. Like, I know Edmundo Sosa's here, and I know Garrett Stubbs is back, but you still need more on that bench. You need to go get some boppers to come off the bench for you. I know that'll come later in free agency, probably after the winter meetings, but no less, I'm all in on, if the Phillies are so pressed to go and add to the rotation, bring Corbin Burns here. Get in on the Corbin Burns sweepstakes. If you want to spend money, go get him. Who knows what the Roki Sasaki market is going to look like? There's a report that said it might benefit him to pitch in a small market coming from Japan. So who knows if Japan's small market translates to Philly in terms of, the typical suspects we see signing Japanese players. But you don't know in that situation.
Yeah, I saw something that, like, he wasn't he wasn't really high on the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Looks like the Tigers are preparing to chase him. And you know how good the Tigers are at developing pitchers. That would be really good for them. Yankees are looking to make a pitch. I swear to God, if he winds up in those pinstripes, I'm going to be pissed.
The Diamondbacks are apparently in on
Diamondbacks
him
are
as
in.
well.
The Cubs are in. I mean, I assume every single team in the MLB is really in on him.
You'd be fool. The only teams that probably aren't are like the White Sox and the A's.
Yeah, because they're just they would ruin him.
Yes. So that remains to be seen. But, like, if you just want to go and add an ace caliber pitcher to this already ace littered rotation, go get Corbin Burns. And I don't know why people aren't talking about Corbin Burns and the Phillies being a match, because they are, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's playing style fits Philadelphia to a T. And then he'll get to learn from Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler and all these great pitchers. And I'm sure the Phillies could pull some guys from their 08 title run and be like, hey, you want to learn from some champions? Here's Cole Hamels. Learn from him.
Which, speaking of Cole Hamels, great layup there. Did you see Cole Hamels is going to be part of the 2025 broadcast team?
Is he?
He's going to have a role with the 2025 broadcast team. And to me, this speaks the Phillies are kind of preparing to usher in Cole Hamels and let Mike Schmidt just usher his way out, because I think Cole Hamels on the broadcast is going to add so much value. I already love Kruk. We all love Kruk on the broadcast, but to add a pitcher perspective into this, I think is huge. So Phillies Nation, they do a great job. If you're not reading them every day, you're doing yourself a disservice. Hamels, he said this at his retirement game. I was at that game this summer. He said he wanted to be more involved with the Phillies organization moving forward. He's going to be he's going to be in camp with the Phillies as a guest instructor. And he's going to be a contributor to Phillies TV broadcasts on NBC Sports Philadelphia during the regular season. They're saying that he could be a perfect fit for the Phillies broadcast. It's unclear how many games he'll call, and if any of the other color commentators, being Kruk, Ben Davis, Ruben Amaro Jr., and Mike Schmidt, are expected to significantly scale back their dates. Kruk calls a majority of the Phillies home games with Tom McCarthy, and Schmidt appears mostly on Sunday afternoon broadcasts. and Davis and Amaro Jr. call most road games. So to
And I mean,
me, like, if you want Cole on the broadcast, and this is no slight to Ruben Amaro Jr., who I genuinely like on TV. I think
yeah,
he does a great job, but I think Ruben is so much better in the studio show setting, whether it be on NBC Sports Philadelphia or on MLB Network. I think he crushes in the studio shows.
yeah,
I think if you can scale him back on the broadcast and put Cole Hamels in, scale Ben Davis a bit back more, and I think Ben Davis is better suited for the studio show aspect. Bring Cole Hamels in, and then that way you have also, if you are scaling back Mike Schmidt on Sundays and Cole Hamels is in, then you have a hitter and a pitcher perspective in the
yeah,
booth with you. I'm so excited about this. Cole Hamels was my guy from that team, and for him to continue to be around the team even more is so awesome.
yeah. And I genuinely think McCarthy and Kruk are the best two commentary duo in the entirety of sports.
They're so
Not just
good together.
MLB, but just sports.
They're
They're so
so
good.
good together.
And Kruk might be the funniest dude alive.
He's so great. And I met him last year at the City Connect block party. He's the same exact way in person.
Oh, that clip of him scaring the kids out of the booth.
Hey,
Hey, elite, elite. The dude
uh,
just is he's so funny, a walking clown, and has possibly the greatest baseball quote of all time. I'm a baseball player, not an athlete.
yeah, it's the best. And there were comments made with Scott Boras about Bryce Harper and his contract situation. And John Middleton kind of just saying our expectation is for him to retire as a Philly. How that gets done, we're not sure of yet, but that's the expectation, that he never wears another uniform. So
Perfect.
obviously, Bryce Harper's contract looks like pennies on the dollar compared to a lot of these contracts getting dished out now, which is great. And I laughed, and I will continue to laugh at everyone who laughed at that Bryce Harper contract when he signed it, because we knew in 3 years' time that contract was going to be well worth itself. And
Yeah.
look where we are now. Juan Soto's getting $765 million from the Mets.
I saw a clip seeing how much he would make just rounding the bases after a home run, right? It was like $30.
He's
Like,
making over $5,000 a day for the next 15 years.
I
Did
wish
you
I
also see the report on why he chose to not go back to the Yankees as well?
No, I didn't.
So apparently early in the season, the Yankees had a security guard deny one of his family members access somewhere, or like ushered them away. And then that same thing happened again with either like his trainer or one of his chefs or a driver or something that was just like hanging around like batting practice. And the security guard was like, "You can't be here." And when Soto asked for a suite, the Yankees said that he would have to pay for it because Derek Jeter and somebody else prolific, Judge maybe. Yeah, I think Judge. Jeter and Judge both paid for their suites. So Steve Cohen in the deal gave Soto a suite.
Wow. I mean, that's classic Yankees right there, though. Just be mean to your top tier talent, and then
Which is
let
wild.
'em
And
walk.
now you have Yankee fans everywhere being like, "Oh, Soto chose a bag over legacy."
He chose his family over the Yankees.
But what prolific player in the history of baseball didn't choose the bag when they were going to the Yankees? I'm sorry. CC
Precisely.
Sabathia and Mark
Precisely.
Teixeira were choosing the bag. They weren't choosing legacy when they went to
Garrett
the
Cole.
Yankees. Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, Derek Jeter,
A-Rod.
A-Rod. The list goes on and on. Every single player that is signed with the Yankees. Carlos Rodon.
Yep.
We just saw it again. And I'm also dying laughing. I'm howling that the Yankees gave a 7-year, $218 million contract to Max Fried.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Classic.
Oh,
classic.
I loved it. I loved it. Like, it's so funny because the Phillies would tee off on Fried all the
Oh, yeah.
time. I would call him Max Fried because
Boom.
his arm was fried. But the
It's
fact that
like
he's
a
now
Bugs
going
Bunny.
to the Yankees,
Yeah.
he's gonna have to shave his face and he's gonna look even creepier. And the fact that he's an injury prone pitcher, like it sucks for him, but that dude is
Yeah.
injury prone. You saw Braves fans saying it. I'm glad we didn't give him that contract.
Yeah.
That tells you all you need to know. And now the Braves, who last season were trying to swoon Aaron Nola away from the Phillies, lose Max Fried, and they don't have nearly enough pitching.
No.
The Mets, who the fuck is pitching for them outside of Kodai Senga?
You got nobody.
Exactly. They lost Luis Severino to the Athletics. Sean Manaea is still a free agent. You're going to tell me Tyler McGill, a dude who spells Tyler with an O, is going to be someone all chalked up to be a dominant pitcher, and you get him out. Like,
bad optics.
the people who are saying the Mets are better than the Phillies right now are crazy. Top to bottom roster wise, the Phillies have a better all around roster than the Mets do. The Mets have 3.5 good players in their everyday lineup. They have one B tier quality pitcher in Senga. It's just a matter of him staying healthy. Edwin Diaz is Edwin Diaz. Like, they signed Clay Holmes to potentially be a starter. Did we not just see what he did for the Yankees last year? Like, the Phillies top to bottom have a much better roster right now, and they haven't even done all that much in free agency yet. So everyone just needs to relax, calm down. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I love the winter meetings. I love this time of year with baseball because it's just so chaotic.
Oh, yeah. Pure chaos.
It's the best. Harrison, let's move from the baseball diamond to the ice, and it's brought to you by our merch partners, PHI Apparel Company, the best merch in the game. You want to rep your favorite Philly sports teams with unique designs for all. Look no further than PHI Apparel Company. They've got the timely Muck the Fetch shirts that I need to get my hands on. They've got an awesome shirt of the Fanatic choking out Mr. Met as well. They've got great flyer shirts, Phillies, Sixers, Eagles, Union, and they've got Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast merch as well. Go to phiapparel.co, and when you go to checkout, use code UNDERGROUND, and you'll get 10% off your next merch order. It's the most effective and direct way to support everything we're doing here at Underground Sports Philadelphia. So get your merch, phiapparel.co, rep Underground Sports Philadelphia, and get 10% off with code UNDERGROUND for your next merch order. Flyers, Harrison, they get a big win against Columbus the other night. And now they got the Red Wings on deck by the time you guys are listening to this. They go to Minnesota, and then they're off until next Wednesday when they go to Detroit. Obviously, the month of December, not off to the hottest of starts. They lose 7-5 to the Panthers in just a all-out back-and-forth ping-pong match.
Great game of hockey, but
they unfortunately lose to the Bruins in overtime in one of the most disgusting displays of non-referee calling I've seen in quite some time. Fuck the Bruins on Saturday, but they do get a point there. Then they turn around, lose on Sunday 4-2 to Utah, but then they win 5-3 against Columbus. You got 3 points so far in this month through 4 games.
You know, that 17 to 20 window is still looking pretty strong for points. But all I gotta say is 2 words, 1 name. Matvei Mishkov. The kid has had 5 straight games with multi-point games. He's playing out of his mind. We were talking about it before the show, but he's got the most rookie points by a USSR mile. He's insane. Like, he's got 27 points in 27 games. If you don't give him the Calder Trophy, throw the damn thing away.
Yes. I also was hysterically laughing at the fact that he signed an autograph on his way out of getting thrown out of that game the other night.
Oh, yeah. He's Philly through and through, for sure.
Did you see Tortorella's reaction? They asked him about it, and he wanted to be mad, but you could tell he was trying so hard to not laugh at the fact that he did that.
He was like, Well, he's still a rookie and he's got to learn.
He's like,
And I'm
no,
gonna
he was like,
learn
no,
today."
I didn't see that. And you could see the smile trying to break through his face. It was great. But yeah, I mean, you look at pre-Christmas matchups, it's Red Wings at home on Thursday, Minnesota in Minnesota on Saturday, which will be a good litmus test there to see where you stack up against that team who's playing extremely good right now. Then you go to Detroit next Wednesday. Then the Kings come here on the 19th, the following day after you get back from Detroit. Then the Blue Jackets come here Saturday, December 21st. And then you go to Pittsburgh on the 23rd before Christmas.
And we got to win that Pittsburgh game. If we don't lose anything, if we lose the entire rest of this month, as long as we win that Pittsburgh game, I'm happy.
And then post-Christmas, it's West Coast swing at the Ducks, at the Kings, at the Sharks.
Yeah. And
which I think are all winnable.
West Coast trip after the holidays. We always do it.
Yeah, and I think those are all extremely winnable games. Like the Kings are obviously much better than the Sharks and the Ducks, but I think you can stack up against the Kings kind of like you did against the Rangers on Black Friday.
And this Flyers team can genuinely beat anybody right now. They're playing fun hockey.
They're in a playoff spot right now.
Team. Yeah, they're just a fun team.
Yeah, they're having fun. TK is playing out of his mind. Mishkov is him.
He's Philly through and through already.
Forster's playing great. I'm having fun with this team, and you guys all should too, because they are fun to watch. They are fun to watch. Little quick hitter with the Sixers. They're back in action on Friday. Hey, I mean they beat the Bulls on Sunday, which was huge. Embiid was back, and he looked great.
Max, he had his first career triple-double.
And it's one of those things that, they missed the NBA Cup knockout stage. They played in the group play, but you get two easier opponents in the Pacers and the Hornets to kind of get back on track and figure some things out. And I don't know. I think it's one of those things that you want to take it game by game right now with the Sixers. Yeah. You don't want to look too hard into the way they're playing, and you don't want to write them off per se. But the Sixers right now, they're getting good play from a lot of role players, and it came out today too that Caleb Martin's been playing with a shit ton of injuries, and that's why he's looked pretty terrible. Same thing last season, apparently. I don't know if you saw that report too. Bryson Stott for 40% of the year was playing with an injured elbow or something.
Yeah, which makes sense considering the little slump he had at the end of the year.
Which is Bryson, if you're not feeling 100%, just sit for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. Get your ass on the bench and then go to the minors for a little bit of rehab.
But I don't know. And I've been just this is people on Twitter are just ridiculous at the NBA. People are already talking about trade deadline moves. I'm it's not even Christmas.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? What are we talking about? Jake Fisher and Mark Stein are talking about Kelly Oubre and KJ Martin are perceived to be the most tradable players for the Sixers, as they're highly unlikely to make any December trades because both players are ineligible to be dealt until January 15th. It's why are we talking about this now? This team has barely played together and we're going to blow it up again.
Yeah. I say just wait until what we look like to see what we look like around February. And if we have to tank for Cooper Flag, then you go in for the tank on Cooper Flag.
Yes,
100%. Just give it time.
So yeah, take it game by game, and I'm glad they've had a little bit of a layoff. Hopefully that's good for Embiid. I talked about that on Monday too, is having some time off between the games, give his knee a little bit of rest, and hopefully he can play again on Friday against the Pacers. But our Sixers segment brought to you by our friends over at FOCO, and you guys know they've been releasing lots of new merchandise and products for all fans to show off their favorite team, including our Philadelphia 76ers. We've got the curated shopping list in our bio. Check it out. It's got the 76ers team overalls, the big head Joel Embiid bobblehead. They've got the friendship bracelets, the team gnome, the bottle cap wall sign, the backpack, which is absolutely clean. And my favorite for this holiday season is the Team Property Sherpa plush throw blanket. Check out everything FOCO has to offer for your favorite sports team. Shop this holiday season with our friends at FOCO. Use our link in the description. Check out the Sixers shopping list we have curated for you guys. Check out all your favorite sports fandoms with FOCO, and we thank FOCO for sponsoring the pod. Harrison, we have some discussing to do here on the program.
A little bit of cooking time.
A little Premier League talk. I know this isn't top bins, but I announced it on this show that back in August I'd be on the search for my Premier League team. And we have narrowed down the suitors for my fandom to an Elite 8. An Elite 8 has been curated for my fandom. We are calling this the Premier Decision, which will be announced at a later date. But here are the final 8 teams in the running for my fandom. And here's the funny part, everyone. There are 5 people on planet Earth that know the team I am selecting. It is my mother, my father, our good pal Wes Uhler, myself, and the guy sitting right next to me on this screen. Those are the only ones that know. Here are your final 8 candidates for my fandom, everybody.
What could they be?
Number 1, West Ham United.
A little bit of the Hammers.
Number 2, Newcastle United. Number 3, Liverpool. Number 4, Aston Villa. Number 5, Brighton and Hove Albion. Number 6, Arsenal. Number 7, Crystal Palace. And number 8, Manchester City.
It's a stacked list right there.
That is your Elite 8, everyone.
Put your guesses down below.
Yes. Leave me a voicemail convincing me to join your team. It's still open. You know, a decision can be changed at any moment. We've seen free agent. If you're a Philadelphia fan, you know the legend of Frank Gore.
Oh, you mean the Philadelphia Eagles legend Frank Gore?
You know how things can change. But there's definitely
Flyers legend Shea Weber.
There's definitely a clear front runner for my fandom. And I'm excited to eventually announce it. I'll even give everyone this, and I am currently writing a newsletter on this process of choosing a new sports team to root for in my adulthood, which will drop tomorrow. I know typically the newsletter drops Wednesday mornings. Just being in New York for Steve's wedding kind of threw things off with my schedule, but I'll give everyone this too. The formal announcement, which we are doing a full-on signing day video, will come out during the winter transfer window for the Premier League, which is January 1st to February 3rd.
I think we got to save it till February 3rd. I think it's got to be a deadline day decision.
It is going to be quite a doozy. But yeah, I've been paying attention to the Premier League pretty much all season.
It's been a great season so far.
And whether it just be following along on like the ESPN app when I'm out and about, or being able to sit down and watch a little bit here and there, it's been fun. And I'm just a slut for relegation. I think relegation is the best thing ever. And I wish American sports could do it, because it would be hilarious to see the Dallas Cowboys get sent to like the CFL or something.
Go play in the Rocks Football League.
Like, it would just be amazing to see that happen. And I love relegation. I think it's so much fun to see
get
your
rid of
team
things.
fighting to stay in the league they're in.
It's like, oh, you suck this season. Well, you still got to fight your damn hearts out so that you can stay in the league.
Yeah. It's like, how you gonna laugh from outside of the club? You can't even get in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And then, but you can get in. That's the thing.
Right.
Then you get promotion from the bottom leagues.
right. And like I was sitting today, like just while I was writing out some of the newsletter, just like watching Champions League. So like I'm fully invested. And we've got a lot of fun content coming from the Premier decision, which will air later this year. We have a signing day video ready to go. When we film it, we have the whole concept ready, and I'm
Yeah.
very excited to announce this. And I don't know if people have a read on me as a sports fan per se. Like, obviously, I'm a Philly fan through and through, but I don't know if they have a read on like what type of fan I am across the board, which
Philly
is
fan is just
making it
Philly
very
fan.
fun to
Yeah.
like see how people perceive how I'm going to pick one of these 8 teams.
Yeah, like Philly. If you're a Philly fan, you're just a Philly fan. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. You are Philly through and through. But then when it comes to like European sports like soccer, it's either you find a player that you really vibe with, which is how I became a fan of my team, Chelsea, because back when Eden Hazard was a player for us, I turned on the game, watched him dominate the field, and I was like, yep, this is my guy. This is my team. Easy, done. But sometimes you got to pick other factors. You can't just pick a player. You have to pick the culture around the club. And it's
The
going to be
amount of
interesting.
research I have done
Yeah. Oh, you've
since
been
August
researching. You've been researching.
has been absurd. Like, I feel like I've gone back and done like a college course to
Yeah.
do research on team, players, owner, coach. To me, I think swag is important, and the apparel and jerseys and just like the overall like club initiatives and what they do and all that kind of stuff. I have done research on for all 8 of these teams.
Yep. You could write a dissertation on these 8 teams.
I might do it. I might
You
do
should.
it. Like, it could be a thing.
Write that paper. Write that 26-page paper.
Like, it's crazy. And I'm putting this in the newsletter too. The only other time I've picked a team that did not have a geographical connection to me, and I said jokingly that I'm sure my family lineage has some connection to all of these European English cities, because that's what happens when you're white and live in America. Is a lot of your lineage is tied to England. But to my knowledge, geographic wise, family lineage wise, that were not connected to Philly, and I chose them, was when the PLL started.
Yeah.
And
It's because they didn't
off
have
the rip,
Yeah.
I chose the Redwoods because we all at the time who were on the podcast were like, let's pick a team. People picked their teams, and I was the last one to pick. And I was like, oh, the Redwoods are the last team. I'll pick them. A bear logo is cool. The color scheme is cool. I like their coach. Their players seem fun. Greg Gorenlian came on the podcast very soon after, still a friend to this day. And not that I don't want the Redwoods to succeed, because I like a lot of those guys. I love Nat. I love their team. I still root for them to succeed. When the Water Dogs chose Philadelphia, I was going to adopt the Philadelphia team no matter what.
Exactly. And, I was a Redwoods fan from the jump, too. I chose them because Kyle Harrison was one of my favorite players of all time. And then when the Water Dogs wound up moving to Philadelphia, it was like, all right, I'm going to still rock with the Redwoods, but the Water Dogs are my main team now.
And it worked out well for us because the Redwoods are a West Coast team, Phillies in the Eastern Conference. So, like, you have that dichotomy. Right.
Still root for them.
So that's the only other time I've picked a team that had no like geographical connection to the teams I root for, is when it came to the year 1 of the PLL. It'll happen this year with the WLL too. I'll root for players on those rosters to succeed and everything. But it is fascinating to be like in my early 30s, and it's like, okay, I'm going to pot commit to a team that I have no connection to whatsoever. And it is a liberating feeling to be like, oh, I have the choice to do this and decide and as Dom put it when I put it out on social media, he's like, choose wisely because the decision sticks with you for the rest of your life. And I was like, well, fuck.
Like picking your starter Pokemon.
Right. Like, that's it. And picking your starter Pokemon is truly a personality trait.
Yeah. Yep. So
it's been very
Nice.
fun to go through all of this and figuring it out. And because I am pot committed, I'll be following along with whichever team I choose. Harris and I have been talking. I've been talking to some other people. I'm trying to get Dom back in the mix. We are like 85% certain we will be reviving Top Bins in some way, shape, or form to bring it back. We have the IP for it, so it's like, why are we just going to let it sit dormant? Where Harrison and I are texting about Premier League all the fucking time now. I talked to my buddy Mark Kramer, who's an Arsenal fan. We talk about soccer all the time. He's a Philly sports fan too, so Mark might be making appearances on both shows at some point. But I was like, why not? It's Top Ins is the original spin-off show, the original expansion franchise of this company. We should keep that thing going. And I did a whole rebrand for them at the beginning of the year. And then that's exactly when they had to go dormant for their career obligations, Matt and Dom. So I want to get usage out of the branding that I made for that podcast as well, which I think is pretty damn exquisite. And I think now that I have a bit more of an understanding, because obviously, if you guys don't know, I produce Top Ins when Matt and Dom would record it and kind of just make sure that the live stream, because we did the show live, went smoothly. And if they needed any research, I'd be over in the corner here in the studio pulling it up for Matt and Dom. But now that I have a more clear understanding of how things are working because of paying attention to stuff, I feel like a true-hearted American Premier League fan to piss off a ton of British people by talking about Premier League soccer. And yes, I called it soccer.
Because football is what the Eagles play.
Exactly. Go Birds. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I think I am enjoying it a lot, and I want to have a platform to talk about it. So we're going to use Top Bins to do it. And Harrison obviously is a Premier League fan. We have other people that are Premier League fans in our lives that will have hop on with us. But I think 85% certain, some way, shape, or form, probably in the new year. So we have time to game plan it and everything. Top Bins will make a return to the Underground Sports Philadelphia airwaves.
Yes, sir.
So very excited. The premier decision coming to the Underground Sports Philadelphia social channels in the new year. And maybe before the new year, we narrow it down to a Final Four. And then we go into a Final Four decision. Who knows? Maybe the Final Four decision is an early window opening type of situation. We'll see. There's a lot of fun we're going to have with this. But yeah, the premier decision is ready to rock and roll. And it is brought to you by Shopify. Shopify is the place to go. If you are selling products online, you need to be using Shopify. They are truly the number one. They're the number one in the industry. Every business known to man that is selling a product online or in stores, they're using Shopify. And guys, Shopify's hooking all you business owners up. Build and bring your business to life at your own pace. Using our link, enjoy a free 3-day trial, then start selling for $1 a month for your first 3 months with Shopify. What a deal. It's an absolute steal to start your business in the right direction going into the new year. So explore, build, and bring your business to life at your own pace. Enjoy a free 3-day trial, then start selling for $1 a month for your first 3 months with our friends at Shopify when you use our link in the description. And that's all we got for you guys on this one. I know it's a long one, but hey, it was a fun one, a banger of an episode. Oh yeah, and Harrison, did you say Michael Sowers, Philadelphia wing?
Yes, sir.
With intention, with intention to play. It's not just trading for his rights.
Woo!
He's officially signed. He posted on his Instagram story, "Let's work."
He was just waiting until he could play for the Wings. That's exactly what he was doing.
And he's going to play with Brendan O'Neill and Blaze Reardon and Mitch Jones and Joe Resetarits.
Oh, chef's kiss. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Speaking of which, I will also be at the Wells Fargo Center on Saturday night covering the Wings home opener for the pod. I'll be there 6 o'clock Eastern time. They're playing the Vegas Desert Dogs. Follow along for coverage. Very excited for this Wings season to be back. It's going to be a doozy of a game. I thought they had a great opener, even though they lost. Great signs of offense. We'll be talking about the Wings on this show and obviously more in depth on OTB. But I'll be at the Wells Fargo 6 o'clock opening face-off for the Wings against the Desert Dogs. I'm so stoked to be back. And hopefully I'll see Michael Sowers somewhere along the line as he gets ready to play in Brendan O'Neill's home opener, which is going to be fucking sweet. Make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI. Subscribe to the podcast feed on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Leave a 5-star review. It goes a long way for helping the show continue to grow, helps more people find Underground Sports Philadelphia, and lets us do more dope stuff with and for you guys. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Leave a like on the video. Drop a comment in the comment section. Give me your predictions of who I'm going to pick for my Premier League team. Your thoughts on the Phillies offseason, the Birds, the whole 9 yards. Leave it in the comment section. Smash that like button, ring the bell icon so you know when new videos go live, and leave us a voicemail, speakpipe.com/Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's where you can leave us a voicemail 24/7, 365 to get your thoughts off on anything going on with your favorite sports teams here in Philadelphia. And subscribe to the newsletter, The Graffiti Wall. It's linked in the description. It'll drop typically every Wednesday, 7:01 a.m. Eastern Time in your inbox. And this show is presented by the City of Vineland. And whether you're a company looking to expand, relocate, or you're a new business startup, selecting the right location is critical to your success. Vineland, New Jersey offers both an affordable business location and an excellent quality of life. The city's economic development department is a one-stop source for moving your project through the development and approval process, and their goal is to make this process as smooth as possible and to provide the fastest turnaround times in the region. If you're considering potential locations for your operation, contact the Vineland Economic Development Team at 856-794-4100. That's 856-794-4100. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast. This has been episode number 698 of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Big thank you to Wes Uhler once again for hopping on the show this week. Let's go get another win. Let's win 10 in a row. Let's win 10 in a row. Have me sitting here Sunday night talking about another big Eagles win going into this final stretch of the season as we try to get that 1 seed and look towards the postseason. But let's go beat the Stillers, and we'll see you guys on the next one. And I know I've promised our Polaroid Fade interview will be part of next week's episode for episode 700. What a perfect way to celebrate 700 episodes and with a big-time interview. So I know we've been waiting on that. I said, hey, 700 episodes, perfect time to pop that in. So Polaroid Fade will be on next Wednesday's show with our interview that they came in the studio for. So don't worry, the interview's coming. I just was saying, hey, perfect timing. But this has been episode 698. I'll see you suckers on Monday. But until then, we're getting the heck up out of here, and we're going to go record a segment for streamer season. But until then, we're signing off. Peace.